Neil, you can come back on screen. So as you can see, I'm here with Neil Donald Walsh. We're going to start the program here at the top of the hour, just in another minute. Wanted to come out and just welcome you all. Real happy to be here with you. Neil, of course, has this fabulous workshop. I'll formally introduce this program and Neil's workshop here in just a minute, but wanted to come out on this beautiful Friday morning to welcome you. Thanks for being here. And wow, it's a gorgeous day here in Boulder, Colorado. Neil, I imagine where you are, it's gorgeous too, huh?
Yes, it's a beautiful day in Ashland, Oregon, and it's a beautiful day on our planet in many ways.
Yes, it is. Boy, the majesty of nature. Somebody once said that these garments worn in castles and things have nothing on lilies and fall leaves turning color, etc. And boy, it's true, isn't it?
Just a wonderful planet to be living on, and we could make it even more wonderful with a few simple decisions. And we'll be talking about that as well today, folks. So hang around, don't go away, because we're going to invite you to join us in this lively discussion of what those few decisions could look like.
All righty, and it is the top of the hour, so let me just say welcome everybody and thank you for being here. And this is a live program. I'm Steve Farrell with Humanities Team coming to you from Boulder, Colorado, and as you can see, our special guest here is Neil Donald Walsh, co-founder of Humanities Team, who launched the whole thing back in June 2003, and he's doing a workshop here today. It's called the God Solution. It's an interactive workshop that's built around the question, if there really is a God, why is the world such a mess? And so we're going to have a lot of fun with this. This is not a lecture or a presentation, as Neil shares. This is an interactive workshop. So we're going to be inviting you to come in here and share. Now, we are broadcasting out to Humanities Team Facebook pages. I think Neil's we're on Zoom. There's a viewing room, so many of you are in the viewing room. And then the Sign Network is also broadcasting. A shout out to John Raymer and the Sign Network. And if you go to sign.network, you can learn more about them. It's a synergized impact network exchange, and it's a global alliance for social innovators. And there's a strong spiritual focus. So I want to invite you to go check them out, sign.network. So a little bit about Humanities Team here. We are a global nonprofit that are all over the world. About half of our demographic is here in the United States and about half is outside of the United States. We're a nonprofit, so our focus is to make conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040, which is in about 20 years. And of course, we're not really on a pace to do that. So we have a companion initiative called PACE, which stands for Planetary Awakening, Conscious Evolution. And we're inviting people, you, viewers, everybody all over the world, especially those on the conscious journey, to help us pick up the pace. So at the end of this generation, before we leave the planet for our kids, for future generations, there's this beautiful, flourishing planet, which of course is what conscious living ushers in. So want to invite you to join us in that. And our website is humanitiesteam.org. Now, as well, we created the subscription platform called Humanities Stream Plus, and Neil has 54 listings on Humanities Stream Plus. If you go to Humanities Stream Plus and go to Browse at the top and enter Neil Donald Walsh, you'll see there he's got his own masterclass called Our Final Frontier, but also he's in 53 other programs, and this program also is going to Humanities Stream Plus. There's a 7-day free trial there. So we're going to put links in the window to the humanitiesteam.org website, also to Humanities Stream Plus. And then also I want to share this broadcast as part of the Global Oneness Summit this year. And this is the 12th year that we're broadcasting the Global Oneness Summit. And this is the whole focus and purpose of the summit is to bring out into the open this into the mainstream living, this truth, this ancient truth, this contemporary truth that we are all one with the divine, each other, and all of life. And this is our biggest year ever. This workshop is part of the Global Oneness Summit. Also, next week, we're giving Greg Braden our Spiritual Leadership Award. That's part of the Global Oneness Summit. So we're going to put in the window a link to the Global Oneness Summit so you can go check it out. It's a 9-day summit. It's free. And if you miss any of the programs that are being broadcast for those 9 days, when you register, we'll send you links for free viewing to all of the summit. And Neil Donald Walsh has an incredible program with Lisa Nichols. It's called Voice of Our Universal Self. You want to make sure to check that out. So let me come over to Neil Donald Walsh. Neil, thank you for being here with us today for this live program. And as he mentions, he's coming to you live from his home in Ashland, Oregon. And really looking forward to the program here, Neil.
Well, thank you, Steve. It's lovely to be here with you. And thanks for the opportunity to share some thoughts. And I really mean thanks, because this is a time for us to share with each other important thoughts, important ideas, the energies that we each bring to the process of life itself. Because frankly, this isn't a scare tactic, but it's just a realistic assessment. We're facing a rather critical moment in humanity's evolutionary process, as I experience it. This is just not an ordinary time. And I like to say the team is gathering. I want to start by sharing with all of you. Steve, did you have something more you wanted to add here?
No, I don't. I am all of us, and we've got a large group here in Humanities team with us. We're all going through this together with Neil. So Neil, okay. No, we're just looking forward to this. And I know Neil's, as I mentioned, is looking for a lot of interaction. So viewers, including those out on Facebook, be sure to put list comments, questions that you have, because Neil's going to be inviting you in here for the next 4 hours.
Thanks, Steve. So I just didn't want to roll over you if you had something more you wanted to say, but let me then share where I was going with that. We're in an important moment in the evolutionary process of our species, as I have observed it and as I understand it. This is a critical time when we're creating our tomorrows. And if we don't create our tomorrows in a brand new way, that is, if we don't make some different kinds of decisions than those decisions we've made as a group over the past many years, the past several millennia, actually, if we don't start changing certain of our ideas, and then I'm afraid that we're possibly going to run into more trouble than we would like to anticipate. Life is not the same these days the way it was, when I was young. It's a whole different world out there than it was in the 50s and in the 60s and in the 70s. I know it seems like ancient history to a lot of you who are watching right now, but those were the days that, when I was really becoming active as an adult, because I'm an old geezer now, and I was becoming really involved in life. But I can tell you that I experienced it in dramatically different ways than I'm experiencing life today. So it ain't the 60s anymore. It's not the 70s anymore. It's not the 80s anymore. It's not even the 90s anymore. We're deeply into the 21st century, and it's a brand new and different and more difficult time, as I don't need to explain to any of you, because you're all seeing the outfall of some of the decisions we've been making, over the past years. So I'm glad you're here, because this is not a time for us to talk about all the bad things that are going on. Really, I want to talk about now for the next several hours how you and I can join Humanities Team, become really active members of Humanities Team in changing the global experience and in changing global outcomes. It's interesting, I remember how the idea for Humanities Team came up. It was a dream, actually, that I had. This was many years after the Conversations with God experience, but I was dreaming one night, and I recall the dream vividly. And I was just thinking all about, the challenges that humanity is facing and what's going on, and how I was beginning to see the beginnings of division among our people. There were people of this race and that race, people of this religion and that religion, people of this political stripe and that political conviction, people of this economic status and that economic status, people who belong to this nation and belong to that nation, all kinds of divisions is what I was starting to see, lots of divisions. And I remember in this dream seeing all these people symbolically as being members of individual groups. Each of them had uniforms. It was a metaphor, obviously, in the dream. And I was meant to see that metaphor because the people of this political party wore one particular kind of costume. People of that political party wore another different kind of costume or uniform, and as I saw all these different groups, lining up on the playing field. Again, it was a metaphor that I was looking at. I remember sitting there and watching it from the stands. I was in the stands in this metaphorical dream. And I remember thinking, but who will be on humanity's team? Why isn't there one team that's all of us? Where is humanity's team? And that woke me out of the dream. I remember the moment vividly. I mean, I almost sat up in bed. I thought, oh my gosh, what a thought. Who's on humanity's team? And I thought, what we need to do is form a worldwide organization called Humanity's Team. And I quickly jumped on my computer. It's like 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And I jumped on my computer to see if the name Humanity's Team had been taken, because all the great domain names were being clipped up and taken one after the other very quickly. And so I typed in humanitiesteam.com to see if that name was available. And it was. And I thought, that's a sign. That's a sign. Nobody has even thought of humanitiesteam.com, humanitiesteam.org, humanitiesteam.anything. The name was available. So I quickly grabbed the name, humanitiesteam.org, because it was an organization, as I conceived of it, a global organization made up of people in every nation on earth. And I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could create an organization like that? But of course, I knew I couldn't possibly do it alone. I would need somebody else, somebody with real leadership ability. I mean, I'm not what you'd call a leader. I'm a writer. I'm a thinker maybe, but I'm not really a leader of people, and I don't have those kinds of leadership qualities, nor those organizational qualities. And I was trying to figure out, where I could find that kind of help. And then I ran across a guy named Steve Farrell. Honestly, I can't remember how I met Steve at the beginning, how we found each other, but somehow by the blessing of the universe, we found each other. And I invited Steve. I shared with him my idea. And of course, he took it and just ran with it, because this is the kind of person he is, a person of real, not that I want to throw roses here, but it's true. He's a person of real leadership ability. He gets a good idea and he goes with it and he makes it happen. He's the kind of person who makes things happen. So suddenly, out of thin air, there came this organization called Humanity's Team. Now that's the beginning. That's my history with Humanity's Team. But let me tell you why it's so important to me today. Because if ever we needed people on Humanity's Team, this is it. We want to continue with the metaphor. It's the fourth quarter, and we're just ahead of the 2-minute warning. It's time for us all to run the 2-minute drill, because it's an important time. And it's an important time because we simply can't keep going in the way that we have been going. We need to make some new decisions about a lot of things, about our politics, about our economics, about our social constructions, obviously, to state the obvious, about our climate situation and the climate crisis that we're facing, and we are facing that, and about how we interact, most importantly, how we interact with each other. That's what I want to share with you today, and that's what I want to hear your thoughts about today as well. As Steve mentioned earlier, please interrupt me whenever you want. You don't want to hear me talking nonstop for 4 hours. Incidentally, I can do that. I have been known to do that. Ask my wife; she'll tell you. But it's not a pretty picture. So you don't want me. You don't want me to talk for 4 hours without stopping. So if you want to stop this endless narrative from me, just raise your hand. Or you could write a question in, and we'll talk to Noah in just a moment. Noah is going to be my co-host today, and he's going to help me to navigate some of the written inquiries and the written comments that you're welcome to make in the chat box. If you'd like to appear with me face to face and have a face-to-face conversation, that's very easy to do. You can just go down to the bottom of your screen, and on the bottom of your screen, you'll see an icon that says raise hand. You click on the raise hand icon, and I'll see right here on my computer screen. Isn't this amazing, the marvels of today's electronics? On my computer screen, I will actually see that your hand is raised. I'll see a little notation next to your name in our list of attendees, and I'll call on you. And I'll invite you to join me here on screen for a face-to-face conversation. So you can do it either way, in writing or verbally face-to-face with me. But whatever you do, stop me from just talking nonstop for 4 hours, because as I said, it's not a pretty picture. But I do want to begin, and then we'll go to Noah with our first comment, but I do want to begin by letting you know what this is going to be all about today. We're going to be looking at the question, where is God in all of this? And how can we harness the power of the divine as it moves in us, through us, and as us, in order to make a change in the direction in which we seem now to be headed as a civilization called humanity? I'm not real clear that we are a civilized civilization based on some of the numbers that I see every day when I look at statistics from around the world. And we'll talk about that in just a bit. But this is the time. The team has been forming for a while. The team is now formed. You're a member of the team, or you wouldn't be here. Thank you for your interest. The fact that you're even here right now tells me that you have a sincere and real interest in this whole conversation and in this entire experience, and a willingness, not just an interest, but a willingness to participate with us, to co-create with us some of the most important outcomes, and to generate some of the most important opportunities that we can place before ourselves as we look towards solutions. This is all about what I've come to call the God solution. So today we're going to be talking about the God solution, and we're going to be looking at something very interesting, the concept of idea heroes. See, what I'm hoping that I'll discover today is that you all would like to be an idea hero. And I'll discuss what an idea hero is as well in just a minute. It's going to be really a fun time to share with us today as we move through this play shop. I don't like to call it a workshop. I like to call it a play shop because we get a chance to play together, but to dance together in a way that produces real and genuine change on the planet. We're all about change. You know, I keep thinking of the hot dog vendor. He was kind of a new age hot dog vendor on Staten Island here in the United States. Hot dog vendor, he was selling his hot dogs. And some guy walked up to him. He said, "Are you a hot dog vendor?" He said, "Yeah, I'm a new age hot dog vendor." And the guy said, "Oh, what's that?" He said, "Well, you know, it's just I'm part of the New Thought movement. Can I get you something?" And the guy said, "Yeah, make me one with everything." And he said, the hot dog vendor said, "Okay, I'll make you one with everything. You already are one with everything, but I'll make you a hot dog with everything. Hot dog with mustard and relish and onions and ketchup, and a hot dog with everything." So it makes him a hot dog with everything. He says, "There you go, one with everything." And he gives the guy the hot dog. And the guy said, "How much?" And he says, it's $5. So the guy gives him a $20 bill, and the vendor takes the $20 bill and turns around and walks away. Now the customer says, whoa, wait a minute, where's the change? Where's the change? And the hot dog vendor turns around and he says, "Change must come from within." So that's what I'm sorry. I got a million jokes like that, so you're not gonna be wanting for new jokes for tomorrow at the office. But that idea, that joke came up for me as I began talking about the truth of what's happening on our planet right now. Because if we want to see change on the planet, a change in our direction, a change in our possibilities, a change in our probabilities, a change in our future, and a change in our daily experience right now. If we want to see that kind of a change in this civilization, that change must come from within. See, God is not going to just come along and just from above somehow create that change. So we're going to start that conversation there. Where is God in all of this? Why doesn't God, if there really is a God, why doesn't God just come along and, magically make the change that we'd all like to see? A very good question. And we're going to have to see what that answer is in just a minute. But right now, Noah has already received apparently a written comment or two. So Noah, what do you got here for us?
Thank you, Neil. And I sure hope it was a plant-based hot dog vendor just to start. But we have all sorts of comments and questions, Neil. Let me just start with the first one from your Facebook page. Somebody says, how can we stay in love through this? How is it possible to love this experience right now?
By understanding that it is good question, by the way, very good question. By understanding that it's perfectly designed to produce the outcome for which we yearn. So it's kind of like a cook. I'm an amateur cook, but I enjoy being in the kitchen. And so I'm there, I'm rustling up, some kind of a wonderful meal for my whole family. One of the things I like to do is make dessert crepes. There's a reason I'm telling you this story, but so I make dessert crepes. My dessert crepes are as thin as paper, really paper thin crepes, filled with strawberries or maybe cherries, whatever, and some chocolate syrup and some whipped cream and all the dressings. And people love my dessert crepes, but sometimes I experiment a little bit, and or something may happen. Maybe I had the flame up too high, or I didn't do something quite right. But when I see that the mistake that I made, I don't get upset about it. I stay in love with the experience because I see that, that is going to help me to learn how and to know how and to ultimately create the dessert crepe that I really wanted to create. Or to give you another example, like a scientist in a laboratory. No scientist achieves the outcome that he imagined he would achieve with every single experiment every single time. There are times when an experiment does not work out the way he thought it would, but she notices that there's something to learn from how the experiment turned out. Even if the experiment was a total disaster, she's learned to take notes about that disaster to make sure that the next time he attempts to find a solution to the problem he was exploring, he doesn't do it the same way that he did it in the way that created the disaster. So how can we stay in love with, number one, with the circumstance and the event itself that's going on? How can we stay in a loving place regarding what is now occurring? By seeing that it is occurring in the right and perfect way, allowing us to self-create the perfect moment to make, if you'll forgive the metaphor, the perfect crepe, or to make the perfect outcome, if you will. That without these steps along the way, we wouldn't be in the place we are now, even looking at the challenge and the problem the way we are in this very moment. We can also stay in love, by the way, with other people in exactly the same way. Even people who we think, let me talk about this for a minute, because this is not an unimportant side trip a little bit we're going to take here. Even people that we presume to be the cause of some of the problems that we are creating for ourselves. How to stay in love with even those people. And not coincidentally, how to stay in love with ourselves. When we have to admit that, there were moments in the past year or in the recent times when we didn't do everything in the way that would move forward the agenda of humanity to heal itself, that we were really part of the problem. The way we responded to a situation, the way we reacted to something that someone else said, the way we were simply being in any given moment. I haven't been perfect in all my moments of the past year. Well, pretty close to perfect. I've been pretty close to perfect, but I haven't been exactly perfect in the past year. So how do I stay in love with myself, much less the other people in the social, political, economic spectrum, in the whole, cacophony, in the whole collaboration of people? How do I stay in love with the people who I imagine to be creating part of the problem? And how do I stay in a loving space, as you asked at the beginning? How do I stay in a loving space concerning the situation itself? The only way that I could do any of that is to follow the advice that I was given in Conversations with God, Book 1. By the way, I presume that most of you who are here today are familiar with the fact that I did create a series of books called Conversations with God. We can talk a little bit about that if you'd like to later on. I don't need to get into a big, long history around that, because I presume that most of you know what that's about, or you wouldn't be here. But if you'd like more information, just raise your hand and I'll answer any question you might have. But in the Conversations with God dialogue, I was given 3 words that answer your question. The 3 words that I was given are: see the perfection. Isn't that a great formula? See the perfection. If we can see it as perfect, and to use a third metaphor just to help my mind grasp what is perfect about it. I think of myself when I was, in the 5th or 6th grade, and I wasn't doing so well with my multiplication tables. I still don't do well with math, by the way. Don't ask me how much 2 and 2 plus 2 is, because I'll probably say 5, because I never did well with math. But I really had a hard time learning my multiplication tables. But what I have come to understand is, even when I made a mistake on my multiplication tables, my dad taught me this. I came home with a test score from my multiplication tables, and I got a C minus. I think it was a C minus. And my dad, of course, was hoping I'd get an A or a B, or at least a C, but not a C minus. So I was kind of like nervous to show it to him. So, well, I got a C minus on my multiplication table exam. And I felt pretty bad about it, but he said, "It's okay, son. It's okay. It's a step toward a C, which is a step toward a B, which is a step toward an A. You just don't jump from ground zero to the top of the list. So give yourself permission to be okay with where you are now. See the perfection of that. It's a step toward what you are moving into." And he made me feel really good about what was happening right then and there. So that's my answer to your first question, my friend, is to allow yourself to see the perfection. And that doesn't mean we condone it. It doesn't mean we agree with it. It doesn't mean that we hope it continues or that it repeats itself, but it does mean that we can see the perfection of what's occurring now as a stepping stone for what can occur tomorrow and in all of our tomorrows. The challenge would be, however, if we allow ourselves to be so discouraged or so upset or filled with so much negative energy about the way things are today, that we give up on tomorrow. And we say, what's the use? What's the point? Then we've missed the point altogether. We've missed the point completely. The point of things being the way they are is to invite us to cause things to be the way we wish they are and the way we choose them to be. And that's how we can love into what is occurring all around us in this very moment. It's the answer I would give you. It's the answer that emerges from my experience of Conversations with God. I see that nobody has their hand up. We have a bunch of people in our attendees list, but everyone is listening carefully, and I understand. So, but if you do have a question, don't be afraid to interrupt me, because I'm happy to hear what your question is. And Noah, I know, has another question, from a written question from our audience. Noah,
Yes. And thank you, Neil. This is beautiful sharing. There's so many comments on chat. It would take 30 minutes just to read them, but everybody is very supportive and appreciative of what you're sharing today and what you have shared and continue to share. So I echo this sentiment. Now, David has a question. David says, you mentioned earlier that this is more a dance than a journey. That resonates a lot. Do we need to get to a destination, or are we to just enjoy this human experience as amazing and beautiful individuals of the great ocean of love?
Wow, we don't need to get to a destination. We can choose to get to a destination, but like any really wonderful journey, like any really exciting trip, there could be several destinations along the way. But I do understand the meaning of your question. The ultimate destination, isn't this an interesting question? There really is no ultimate destination, because the ultimate destination of the human journey would be to manifest ourselves and to find ourselves demonstrating as the ultimate expression of divinity. And once we did that, we would have nowhere else to go. And divinity has no intention for us to have nowhere else to go. So here's the interesting secret I was told in conversations with God. As soon as we get to what we presumed to be the so-called ultimate destination, the universe creates a brand new destination. I mean, there's more. There will always be more and always be more and always be more. We're told that the universe is constantly expanding, has been expanding for billions of years, and we're told it will be expanding for billions of years more. Now, there are some cosmologists who say, interestingly, that ultimately the universe will contract again. It will turn around and become smaller and smaller until it gets down to that dot, like the period at the end of a sentence, once again, and the whole process will start over again. But I'm told by even cosmologists that that'll be several billion years from now. So probably not something that you and I need to be too worried about. But my understanding is that in this present phase of the breathing out and the breathing in and the breathing out and the breathing in of the cosmos. Oh, and by the way, cosmologists also tell us that there's more than one universe. Have you heard that? We're told that there's not just one universe now. It turns out, cosmologists are telling us that we live in a universe of universes. That our universe is simply one element of a universe of universes. So that cosmologists have begun talking in terms of the cosmos being the all of the all, the universe of universes. So as we get to what we have decided is our present destination, we discover that God has created even more for us to be able to experience, even more for us to be able to accomplish, even more for us to be able to self-realize. So the answer that I want to give you, Dave, is that, yeah, we can create a destination if it pleases us to do so, but the game is not, I use the word game not pejoratively, I use the word game in a lighthearted metaphorical sense again. It's a metaphor, but the game is not going to be over if and when we realize that we've reached the so-called destination that we have established, because in that moment we will realize, oh my goodness, there's more than one universe. There's more than one destination. The destination is not the destination. It's simply a stopping point. And there's more to go and more to go and more to go. So if our purpose as a civilization is to realize through the demonstration of it our true identity, if the destination of our civilization is to realize who we really are, and when I use the word realize, I mean to make real, like when you Simonize your car, when you realize yourself as an individual, and when we realize our civilization as an expression of divinity, that sense of who we are will immediately expand and we'll see another horizon, and another horizon. And the process, I'll use the word process rather than the word game, because sometimes when I say the game goes on, people think I'm being irreverent. But the process of self-realization, individually and collectively as a species, continues forever and ever and ever. So Dave, the answer is there is no limit to how extraordinary, how wonderful, how glorious, how divine any civilization and any member within that civilization is being invited by life to be. No limit. So there is, in that sense, there is no destination in the sense of it being a place beyond which we cannot or need not go. As soon as we get to what we have decided as our destination, we'll see beyond the horizon and we'll say, oh my gosh, there's more, more divinity to be had, more divinity to be experienced. Wow. And that's the glory and the wonder of God. May I draw a parallel, please, before we go to the next question? Noah, the parallel that I want to draw is this. Have you ever been in love with somebody? Have you ever had the luck, the good fortune to really marry the person that you fell in love with? And have you ever, if you've found yourself in a marriage with the person you're in love with, discovered something 10 years or 16 years or 20 years into the marriage, that you can look at that person and say to them, it's 20 years into the marriage, I love you now more than ever. I thought I loved you completely when I first met you. And on the day that you said yes, yes, I do take you as my partner for life. I thought I loved you completely on that day. And here we are 20 years later, and I'm discovering that I can love you even more than completely. What is more than completely? But our capacity to love expands exponentially with our decision to express it. Did you hear what I just said, guys? It's important for you to hear what I just said. Our capacity, our ability to love expands in direct proportion to our decision to express it. Write that down on your bathroom mirror. My capacity to love expands in direct proportion to my decision to express it. And that's how it works with divinity. I use that as a metaphor, as an example, because divinity is nothing more, if we can reduce it to a couple of words, nothing more than pure love. And so the expression of divinity as pure love expands with our decision to express it. Wow, what a process. And that's what we're involved in, nothing less. I could, of course, be wrong about all of that, but I don't think so. Noah?
Wow. Well, thank you, Neil. What you're sharing just resounds, I know, with me, and I'm sure everybody else. And it feels like, I think at times it feels like there's a courage that's required to express as you're speaking, to express our love.
There's no courage that's required unless we feel we need something back. But if we don't feel we need anything back, then courage, bravery, trust is not an important element. It's not even any element in the process. For instance, God loves us completely and absolutely, but needs and requires and demands nothing in return. Therefore, God does not have to have courage to be divine. It takes no courage to be divine unless we have an investment in what we get out of it. If we have an investment in what we get out of it, then yeah, you bet your life. Then it takes courage to express being divine. But if we're being fully divine and truly divine, then all need to get something out of it disappears. Let me give you another metaphor as an example. When I'm holding a 6-week-old baby in my arms, Noah, and I've got that beautiful 6-week-old girl in my arms, rocking her to sleep. I love her. Purely needing nothing in return. And the love that I feel for that infant in my arms identifies me as who I really am. So here's all I need to do. All I need to do is love Noah as if he were a little tiny infant, and to see him with the innocence and the beauty that is truly who he is, and look past all the things that I think I'm seeing there that have nothing to do with the ultimate reality of who he is. Now, you may think I'm, talking about pie in the sky ways of moving through life. And I am. That's a pie in the sky way of moving through life. And it may not work for you, for a person. It may not work for all of you who are watching this program. On the other hand, try it before you deny it. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Noah.
You did not interrupt, Neil. Thank you. I think we're all trying it here today. And thank you. I know we all love Neil in this way. So we have Connie with a hand raised. I'm sure maybe it's time to bring her on for a question. Neil, what do you think?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
It'll take.
I didn't see any hand raised over Connie's name in the attendees list, or I would have absolutely called on her. So Connie, tell me, how can I serve you? Join us in this wonderful exchange.
Hi, Neil. It's Connie Baxter Marlowe. It's wonderful to see you.
Hi, Connie. Where do you live?
I'm an old friend of Barbara Marx Hubbard's.
Oh my gosh, Barbara and I were buddies. We were pals.
Oh, I know that. And I was the last one with her before she passed.
Oh my gosh.
I live at Sunrise Ranch, and we became very close friends in the last 2 years of her life. And one thing I want to say is your book, The Mother of Invention, is so beautiful because you bring Barbara and you together in the insights that are offered in that book. I really recommend it to people. We should
explain to everybody, Connie, that The Mother of Invention is a biographical book. It's Barbara's life story, and when the time came to publish Barbara's life story, it was difficult to find an author that could really capture it. At least the people at that time around Barbara's team were saying that she was having a hard time. They had looked at some newspaper writers, some reporters, some professional biographers, but they couldn't quite reach inside of what made Barbara tick. And then I got called. Barbara didn't call me. One of her team members called me and said, "Would you have even a little bit of interest in writing Barbara's biography?" And I said, "Whoa, would I ever? Yeah, let's play." Talk about it playing. So Barbara came to my house. We spent about 5 days together. She stayed as a house guest. We went downstairs to my study, and we talked, and we had a camera rolling. We rolled the camera throughout the entire conversation we had for 5 days of conversation. And I was taking copious notes. I said, "Tell me everything about your life." And she did, and everything you think and everything you believe and why you believe it and all the rest. Got all that down. And then Barbara left, and we had all this video footage that I could review because I couldn't possibly remember all of it. And then I sat down to write that biography, but I chose to write it backward. See, I thought, everybody writes a biography. She was born, then she was a child, then she lived her life, then she did this, then she accomplished that. And then toward the later years, this happens. I thought, you know what? I want to write it backward. So I started the biography at the day, in the present moment, where she was in that present moment. And I wrote it backward to allow the reader to get a sense of, how did that happen? Wait a minute, how did that happen? How did that happen? And then it goes backward, and the end of the book is the beginning of her life. So I wrote the book backward, and it became a really wonderful, wonderful project that I got to share with Barbara.
Well, it was wonderful, Neil. And because you brought your insights to it. So it wasn't just about Barbara. It was really a Neil Barbara synthesis.
Yeah, she gave me permission.
I felt was really powerful. And I want to thank you for that. And also what I want to ask you is in the first book, The Conversations with God, I remember, it was a long time ago, having read it, but I saw in it that we have already chosen this path, this future, this way of being. And that and what I got was that somehow it's already happened, perhaps, and that we are just aligning with it now through free will. This is what my takeaway was for my work with the trust frequency. I've written a book called The Trust Frequency, 10 Assumptions for a New Paradigm, to understand the human process towards moving into this state that you speak of. And this, I call it a frequency, a vibration. But tell me, what are your thoughts on that? As far as, has it already happened? And are we aligning, we doing this process of aligning through the physical choices to transmute fear and separation and scarcity, all that. What are your thoughts on that?
My answer is yes to the question. And let me explain that relatively simple, if not too direct answer. I was told in Conversations with God, specifically in the book Home with God, Home with God in the Life That Never Ends goes into the cosmology, the cosmological construction of life itself. And in that dialogue, I was told that everything that's ever happened is happening now, and ever will happen is happening right now. That there is no such thing as time in ultimate reality. It's all occurring simultaneously. Every possibility. And my mind had a hard time, frankly, Connie, wrapping itself around that. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, you're going too fast. You're going too fast. I can't, I can hear the words. I hear the words, but I can't understand how that could be. I can't comprehend it. I can't, embrace the notion. Help me to understand that functionally. And God said, I can tell you real fast. Have you ever played a computer game? And I said, yeah. God said, have you ever played computer chess? And I said, yes. God said, you do understand, don't you, that the computer chess game has already been played. When you turn on your computer chess game, it's not playing for the first time. Every possible move of every possible piece on the board in every possible situation has already been made. It took computer experts, masters at computer, to design the program. And they didn't design it in a week and a half. It took them like 3 or 4 years. But after 3 or 4 years, they designed a program that the computer holds within its memory bank of every possible move of every possible player, every possible piece of on the board from any place on the playing board at any given time in the program. Which is why when you play computer chess, the game has already been played 1 billion times by the programmers. All you're doing, but what you are doing is deciding for yourself how you want to go through the process that's already been completed. So you sit there and when you're wanting to play and you're going, let's see, what's the best move here? With kings, pawn 3 to kings. Okay, I'll move like that. I'm going to move the bishop. Yeah, bishop to king's pawn. And then you make, and after 5 minutes of thinking about it, you move it on the computer chessboard, and the computer responds this fast. It immediately has its response. You go, well, wait a minute. Because of course it's seen that move before. It's already, that move has already taken place. It's just that you're experiencing it for the first time in your experience. But so then you take another 10 minutes to figure out your next move. And as soon as you make the next move, the computer goes, and it does the counter move, and it just that fast. And then what I learned was the computer, by the way, doesn't care whether it wins or loses the game. It has no investment in how the game turns out. You get to either play to the end, and you can actually beat the computer program, or the computer program will beat you that particular time, depending on how you played the game in that particular moment. So that was given to me as a metaphor, as a way to understand everything that's already happened is happening now and ever will happen is happening now. And we're moving through what was given to me as the time tunnel. At the time tunnel, God said, time is not moving, time is not passing, time cannot pass. There's no such thing as time in the way you conceive of it, Connie. Time is not moving, time is static. The ever-present, eternal moment of now. Think of it as a tunnel that exists, and it doesn't move. Time does not pass. You are passing through time. So imagine the metaphor that you're going through a tunnel that's called time. And as you move through the tunnel, every inch along the way, around the perimeter of the tunnel, up, around, to your left, to your right, down below, there's a circle. There's a ring, and the ring has, like, as a metaphor. Again, God said, just think of it as a metaphor. You'll find little snapshots, little pictures of that moment, and all the ways that particular nanosecond could present itself. All the different ways that nanosecond could present itself. And you pick out the one you want to experience. There might be a million little pictures for that particular nanosecond, and you pick out the one you want to experience. Then you go to the next ring, and the next ring, and the next ring, and you keep on picking at, you point to what you pay attention to, and what you focus on is how you will experience that moment, and that moment, and that moment. But the choices are endless. And when you make the right choices, the right being the ones that bring you the outcomes that you most prefer, each time you pass one of those rings in the tunnel, you become what? Lord of the Rings. It's so wonderful when I was told all of this. You know, it's like, you know, who could dream up stuff like this? You know, and when that came off the computer screen, because I'm writing this, I'm keyboarding this in as it's coming to me, and I'm keyboarding it in, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, this is so elegant and so simple to understand that even a dunce like me, who couldn't get past 6th grade and learn his multiplication tables, can understand how it actually functions. So now, because I have that awareness, I pay very close attention, Connie, to what picture in the current ring that I'm involved in, what picture I want to focus on. And that is how I create my own reality out of the endless possibilities that every nanosecond presents to every creative being, every sentient being in the cosmos. Now, you know what? I could be making it all up. I mean, those ideas could have just come to me. I could be wrong about all of this. But here's what's interesting, Connie. I don't care. Because even if I'm wrong about all of it, it's a terrific way to look at life. And it's worked for me in helping me to not only change my life, but in certain small ways to even impact the world at large. Connie, millions of people, not a couple 100,000, but many millions of people have read the Conversations with God books, which are published in 37 languages. Not bragging, just saying. I only brought it up because as an example of what I'm trying to share with the audience. When you decide that you are going to move through life in the way I've described, miracles happen. And I'm sharing that with you guys, all of you who are here, so you understand that we can collectively, if one person can do that, what do you think we can do together? Wherever two or more are gathered. Oh my God, the possibilities for tomorrow are endless. Let's step into the tomorrow that we collectively choose.
Thank you, Neil. And what I heard you say, 2 key points, was there was no judgment on what choices we make. It's up to us. That's what I heard, you know, as far as the computer game, it doesn't care.
That's correct.
It's up to us.
Yeah, we're not going to hell, even if we're not, don't belong to the right religion.
Yeah, all that. And the other thing, the observer effect, science is proving that aspect of what that we create, what we put our attention on. And so I don't think you're making it up. I think you've got a direct line to truth. And thank you so much for sharing all of what you see, what you know, and your heart and your spirit in such an honest and direct way, Neil.
Well, those are kind and gentle things for you to say, Connie. Thank you for those sweet words. And let's teammate together. I didn't realize that you were, one of Barbara's wonderful friends in the most important moment of her life as she celebrated her continuation day. And I thank you for being there with her and for her during those moments. And let's find a way for you and I to team up together. And don't forget me when this program is over. Stay in touch. And Steve will tell you exactly how to connect with me.
I just have to tell you what Barbara said right before she went into the coma. She said, Connie, we have to work together on the trust frequency. And then she went to sleep and never woke up. So I'll be in touch, Neil. We have some cool collaboration we can do. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Okay, my friend. Blessed be. Wow, this is fun. This is great fun. This program we're doing here today. I want to thank Steve Farrell and Humanities team for giving us the opportunity to do that. Let me share with you before we go on with more callers and more contributions from the participants. Let me share with you a little bit more about what I opened up with. This is a really important time on our planet. This is a really joyful time. Barbara, speaking of Barbara Marx Hubbard, used to say, as Connie will remember, I'm sure, Barbara used to say, we're in a birthing process, and all birthing can be painful and joyful at precisely the same time. And so we are experiencing the pain in many ways of the tomorrow that we are birthing. But we can experience the joy of the birthing in which we are engaged as well if we become consciously involved in the process, not just as observers, not just watching it happen, but causing it to happen in a particular way. Just as we started talking about with Connie, describing, the circle or the ring of pictures, to use a metaphor that we get to picture in our mind about the tomorrow that we wish to experience, and to do it collectively as a group. In this case, a group that we happen to call Humanities Team. That if we join together in the work of Humanities Team, boy, I mean, the changes we could make are unbelievable. But let me return to where I was at the beginning of our presentation today. Why doesn't God just do this for us? If there really is a God, and there are some people who don't believe there is a God, but most of us do. I don't know whether you've looked at the most recent surveys, but there have been opinion surveys, taken around the world in the past several years, and in every culture on the planet, not just in certain areas, but all over the planet, they asked the same question. Do you believe in a God? Do you believe in a controlling power? Do you believe in something larger, than us? That there's something more going on here than meets the eye? Do you believe in a controlling power? And 8 out of 10 people say yes. From culture to culture, from country to country, from nation to nation, 8 out of 10 people say, yeah, there's something more going on here, more than meets the eye. It's not just as simple as as it might look. There is a controlling power. So with 8 out of 10 people believing in a higher power, or if you please, God, or Allah, Brahman, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever word you want to use to refer to that ineffable essence we call the divine, if there really is that essence, why doesn't it just step in and change the direction in which our civilization is moving, if that direction is leading to our own self-destruction, or at least a change in our lifestyle such that we're not going to be very happy with some of the outcomes? Why doesn't God just fix it? It's a fair question. So I start God, or somehow or another, hoping that this God will step in and change things. Then why doesn't she? What's stopping her? Where is he when we need him? Why isn't God fixing things? And I call that the God dilemma, which, by the way, was the working title of the book when I first started writing it. My title was actually the God dilemma, because it was a dilemma faced by all true believers. If I believe in God, why doesn't God believe in me? I mean, believe in us enough to make things better. What's going on here with the pandemic, the global economic collapse that it has caused, the racial injustice we're seeing from nation to nation and place to place, and all the other challenges and problems being faced by humanity at this point in time? What's going on? Why doesn't God fix it? Fair question. And that's what I say at the beginning of the book. It's fair question time, folks. It's fair question time for all those true believers. What's the point of having a God if the world is in such a mess? Now, right about now, if this were a TV program, we would break for a commercial to make you hang around, and wait for the answer. But we're not doing a TV program, so I can't say we'll be back in a moment with the answer, but I can take a break and have Noah fill the next 60 seconds with his commercial for, or whatever he wants to ask.
Right. Well, thank you, Neil. This is what Garth calls a loose shoe. So this is my loose shoe here. But
soft shoe.
Soft shoe. Soft shoe. Thank you, Garth. Soft shoe. I'd like to think of a tap dance. I will not tap dance for you, Neil.
Isn't this fun? Thank you, Garth. I'm sitting, you got to know, Noah, I'm sitting here trying to put it together. A loose shoe. What in the heck is a loose shoe?
To me, it's the same as a soft shoe, Neil. I don't know. They're both kind of, it has a jazzy feel to it. That's all I know.
So what is the soft shoe? Don't do a tap dance, but tell us.
I think this was the soft shoe. Thank you. And we have a question from Ron, or rather, it's a series of 3 questions, which I particularly like. Can we make mistakes? Can a cat make a mistake? Can a tree make a mistake?
No. The answer is, my answer is no. Mistakes are not possible. Steps are taken, but mistakes in the sense that it's, well, how can I put it? Most people think of mistakes as failures. And if we can agree loosely, we don't need to get, real technical about it, but if we can agree loosely that most people think of mistakes as failures, things they wish had not happened, and certainly not successes. So if we think of mistakes as failures, then the answer is no. Neither you, nor your cat, nor the tree outside can make a mistake. Everything is perfect exactly the way it is occurring. And everything is perfect exactly the way it is occurring because no particular outcome is required by God, or if you please, by life itself for any particular moment. no particular outcome is required. The outcome is a possibility, and what we choose to do with the so-called mistakes that we made is what determines that particular outcome with regard to that particular series of events, if I could put it that way. So we are told in the book Communion with God, and by the way, I should explain to all of you, I'm sure you probably have guessed by now, but every one of the answers that I come up with is going to arise from my understanding of what was given to all of us in the 9 Conversations with God books. There are 9 books in the Conversations with God cosmology. And one of those books is called Communion with God, in which we are given the 10 illusions of humans. In Communion with God, I was told that don't worry about keeping the 10 commandments, Neil, because first of all, there are no commandments. I did not command the human race in any particular way. It's not the kind of a God I am. I'm not like the king of the hill who makes commandments, and then if you don't keep the commandments, I send you to hell. That's not who I am. But don't even worry about the 10 commandments because you're not keeping them anyway. I mean, not all of them and not all the time. But worse yet, not only are you not living the 10 commandments all the time, or all of them, but worse yet, what you are living is the 10 illusions. And I said, 10 illusions? I never heard of that. What are the 10 illusions? I'm not going to give them to you now, but because I don't want to take up that kind of time. But maybe later on in today's program, I'll just list the 10 illusions of humans. But the first illusion is that need exists. And the second illusion of humans is that failure exists. But when we are clear that we don't need anything in particular in order to be who we really are, and in order to be joyfully fulfilled and happy, then failure cannot exist either. And then there's no such thing as a mistake. There's only a step toward what it is we choose to experience as our ultimate outcome, as the ultimate outcome of the process that creates the agenda of the soul. So cats don't make mistakes. Squirrels don't make mistakes. Trees don't make mistakes. A tree grows into what it is, and it can't make a mistake in terms of its process, and neither can we. But speaking of trees, since you brought it up, and I did not, but since you brought up the idea of can a tree make a mistake, everything that the tree needed to know to grow into the magnificent oak outside that window right now, that 40-foot or 60-foot, however big it is, beautiful oak tree, everything that tree needed to know to grow into that wondrous expression of life outside the window, it knew it was encoded in a seed no bigger than my fingernail. I mean, the seed is no bigger than my little fingernail. And everything, the tree didn't learn anything along the way, didn't learn how to become a tree. Everything that it needed to know to become that beautiful tree outside the window was encoded in that tiny seed, no bigger than my fingernail. That if God so loved the tree, would she not all the more love you? So consider the possibility that everything you needed to know to become the most magnificent expression of life that you are was encoded in you. It doesn't need to be given to you now. In the truest sense, you don't need to fall to your knees and beg God to bring you the information, to give you the understanding, to allow you to have the wisdom. It was encoded within you from the very beginning. For God so loved the world that he gave every living element of life itself, all that it needed to know to express divinity in the fullest way that that particular life expression is capable of generating and demonstrating. So my answer to your question is no, you can't make a mistake in the sense of having failed in some way, but you can take a turn on the path, if you please. Again, I speak in metaphors a lot, but if we just choose to imagine that we're on a path, on a journey, you can make a left turn. It's not a mistake, but because there's no way not to get where you're going. But it could take you a little longer to get where you're going, or it could make it a little more difficult. The road that you've turned on may be a little bumpier, and create a few more obstacles. You'll get where you're going. Nobody cannot get back home. Nobody does not or cannot return home to God and home to what we would call paradise or heaven. There's no such thing as not getting there. But it can sometimes be more difficult for one person than it is for another. But even levels of difficulty are not failures. They're simply increased opportunities to demonstrate at the next highest level who you know yourself to be. And when people talk to me about that, I invite them to look at the lives of some of the world's, or the people who we have named as, and we hold in our sacred space as some of the world's greatest spiritual masters. And we can all name those that we think fall into that category, whoever that might be for you. But as you look at the life of these masters, you will see that they are not without a little bit of a bumpy road here and there. And in some cases, some pretty serious consequences. But all of those consequences turned out to be perfect, in the sense that without them, the outcome, the ultimate result of their life process would not have been possible. To put this in strictly theological terms, according to the information and the understandings of one particular religion, would the experience of Jesus Christ have been possible without the crucifixion? Obviously not. No crucifixion, no Christ. So we see that the crucifixion of Christ was necessary for the story and the impact of Christ to have been realized, to have been made real in the experience of billions of people throughout human history since he was born. And the same could be said in the same general way about many other people who have experienced their own particular challenges, and if I could use the phrase, their own particular crucifixions. So this is not to suggest for a minute, I don't want to get into sacrilegious territory for some people. This is not to suggest for 1 minute that everyone claims to be, a Christ-like savior, but it is to make it clear that even someone such as Jesus moved through the process that we call the crucifixion in order to express who he really is and who he really was. And we can use that as a pattern, and we can see that as that which is true for all living beings everywhere. So, did Jesus make a mistake when he answered the questions that Pontius Pilate asked him, and when he refused to give Pontius Pilate the answers that would have saved him from the crucifixion? No, that wasn't a mistake. He did what he did, and he did it in the way that produced outcomes that generated the ultimate experience for which he was created. Consider those words deeply and then apply them to your own life. Because even Jesus, when he was asked about the totality of his life, all the things that he did and all the things that he was capable of, when he was asked about that, he said to his disciples, "Why are you so amazed? Why are you so amazed? These things and more shall you do also." Was he kidding around? Didn't he know what he was saying? Or was he telling us the absolute truth? And was he saying in his own way, don't make your struggles, don't make your challenges, and don't make your own particular crucifixions a mistake. Don't call them a mistake. There's no such thing as a mistake in the universe. There's only a process by which you become a grander and grander expression of who you really are. You don't believe me? Look at the tree outside your window. It hasn't made a mistake in its entire life. And neither have you. I could, of course, be wrong about all of that. But I don't think so. Carol Gardner is here. Carol has her hand raised and would like to share some time with us at this point. By the way, we'll be taking a short break in about 15 minutes. So those of you who would like to take a little refresher break, use the facilities, maybe take a little short walk outside or throw open a window and get some fresh air. Just take a little bit of a break for 15 or 20 minutes. You'll have a chance to do that at 1:30. But here's Carol. Carol, tell me everything. How can I serve you?
We're having a bit of trouble bringing Carol in here. I think she may have some compatibility issues.
Okay, well, we can ask Bernice. How about let's see if Bernice has her hand up. Bernice, guys, when you raise your hand, be sure you have both your video camera on and your microphone. If you look carefully on the bottom of your screen, in the left-hand corner, you will see a little microphone icon and a little camera, television camera icon. You've got to make sure you click those icons. Make sure there's no line going through it, because if you see a line going through it, that means they're off. So if you want your video to be seen, and we hope you do, I'd love to see your face. After all, you're looking at mine, and I'd like to look at yours. We can have a face-to-face conversation. And if you'd like to be heard, make sure that your microphone is on. So let's see, how are we doing? Is Bernice able to be brought in?
Just a quick clarification, Neil, they won't see those buttons unless they're panelists. So we have to promote them first.
Oh, I see.
Hi, Bernice. Unmute yourself, please.
I see your picture, Bernice. So all you have to do is unmute yourself, and then we'll be able to hear what you want to say. And we can bring your picture to the screen.
There you go. All right. Hello.
Hi. How can I serve you?
Sometimes, Neil, we press this by accident. I think this may have happened with Bernice. So thank you for trying, Bernice. We have a bunch of other hand raised. So let me just try and bring in Chris here.
Okay.
And sorry about this. Sometimes with these webinars. It's a bit of a tricky process of bringing folks in. Somehow, Garth, I don't know why the panelist thing is not working. But we'll keep trying. But let's try one more time. And if not, we do have a bunch of text questions, Neil.
Okay. Do you want to try Galaxy J2 or Carol again, or neither?
I just tried Galaxy.
Okay.
Here we go. We'll see Galaxy J2. If we hope you tried to raise your hand here to come on for a question. I'm sure your name is not actually.
So you need to unmute yourself and turn on your camera.
Let me also just say, as a housekeeping measure, we have the option. I mean, everybody here is here, and Neil, I mean, wow, is gracing us with all this time. So please raise hand. If you're raising a hand, be sure it is only because you have a question and you're ready to come on camera and unmute yourself so that we can honor everyone's time. So we have Galaxy. Can you share your name with us? Mr. Galaxy J2, you're on. Okay. I think there's some confusion here. People are raising hand by accident. Neil, we have questions in the chat. Sorry.
No, everything is perfect. This is, you know what's wonderful about this? No, the audience is getting a wonderful opportunity to experience all that I've been talking about for the past hour. Right. Everything is perfect.
That's right.
There are no mistakes. Nobody's making a mistake. Everything is perfect. If Galaxy J2 really was supposed to be part of this program, we wouldn't, because I see him in the little picture. He's just staring straight ahead. He's like, it has nothing to do with, with wanting to be on the air. It's perfect. So we are seeing perfection playing itself out. Can you imagine anything that would be more perfect than listening to me for the next 4 hours without interruption? That sounds pretty good to me.
Well, thank you, Neil. And thank you for allowing us to for demonstrating it for us. We have a question from Andrew.
Okay.
Would you please elaborate on your word recontextualization? And he says he has your latest book, The Only Thing That Matters, and have read all of your other books, but just some clarity on recontextualization, please.
Sure. Just talk about clarification. I'm glad you're having a chance to read The Only Thing That Matters, but honestly, that's not my latest book. That book was written 4 or 5 or 8 years ago. My latest book is called The God Solution, which came out this year and has only been in print for about 8 or 9 months. So, but the Only Thing That Matters is a book that's probably 6 or 7 years old. I love the book. It's an exciting book. One of the 39 books in the entire body of work surrounding the Conversations with God material. And Andrew, the book, you're right, mentions the phrase recontextualization. That's a tool. Recontextualization is a tool that I was given in the Conversations with God dialogue. A marvelous tool that we can use to shift the perspective that we are embracing with regard to any particular moment, situation, circumstance, event, or experience. When we put it into a new context, rather than the context that is created by our mind, then we have recontextualized. And recontextualization can change everything about the way we experience that moment or event and the way it all turns out. So it's a matter of taking the data that we are receiving from our mind about a particular moment, taking that data and putting it into a new context. seeing it in a new way. And we've been kind of skirting around that for the past hour, talking about seeing the perfection. Recontextualization is a way to see the perfection. So we can, and there are 100 examples I could give you of recontextualization, where something looks like it's a failure and it turns out to have been an enormously important part of our eventual success. Yes? So that which looks like a failure could turn out to have been an incredibly critical ingredient in our eventual success. Without this, not that. Without this, not that. So we recontextualize our lives when we choose to place the particular moment that we are encountering in a different context. For me, what that looks like, Andrew, is putting it into the context of my spiritual life, my spiritual experience, rather than my physical experience. So I recontextualize what's occurring and cause myself to see it as part of my spiritual encounter with life, rather than my physical encounter with life. And that can shift my response dramatically. And as I said a minute ago, it can shift the outcome dramatically as well. So that's what I mean by recontextualization. So when we recontextualize a moment in our life, we're really asking ourselves a fairly simple question. The question is, can I look at this in a different way? Is there a different way that I could see this particular event? And if there was a different way that I could see it, what would that be? What would that new way be? And if I could see it from the standpoint of my true identity as a spiritual being, rather than simply a physical entity, how, if in any way, would that change my experience of what's happening in that moment? That's the power of recontextualization. When we see it in a different context, when we see it in a spiritual context, rather than simply a physical context. I'll give you an example from my life to make it more concrete. A few years ago, I had open heart surgery. I was not feeling well, and I was noticing that it was getting to be a big deal to even carry a bag of groceries in from the car. I'd have to sit down and huff and puff, for 6 or 8 minutes to get myself back together. And so my sweetheart, my beloved wife, my life partner, said to me, you really need to go see your cardiologist. There's something going on there. And so I did. I made an appointment with a cardiologist, and he, said we should do an angiogram. We did an angiogram, and he came out from the test and he said, you've got some real serious problems. You've got blocked arteries, and not one or two, but many blocked arteries. You need a bypass. You may need a triple bypass. You may even need a quadruple bypass. And so you're going to need an open heart surgery, and not in 6 months or next year, like right now. Based on the test I'm seeing, you need this procedure right now. As soon as we can find an operating suite and a heart surgeon available, we need to book you in. So clear your calendar for the next week or two. We're not talking about in 2 months. We're talking about the next 10 days. We need you to have this surgery if I can find a surgeon and a suite that's available. That wasn't exactly the best news of my life. I might have called that bad news. But because of my spiritual understanding, I used recontextualization as a tool. That is, I took that event, that news, and put it into a different context. What if it were a spiritual event and not simply a physical event? What if it was part of my spiritual world and not just part of my physical world? So I began to look at it from that point of view. And, you know, as it happened, there was a surgeon available, turned out to be the man who's reputed to be one of the best, one of the most expert heart surgeons in the West Coast of the United States. And he was available. And the operating suite was available. I think it was like 4 or 5, maybe 6 days later. Didn't even have to wait 10 days. And I went in for the surgery. I remember the moment that I was waiting to go in. You know how they have you in the prep room and you're lying on the gurney. They're ready to wheel you into the operating suite, and they let your next of kin or your loved one be with you for a few moments. My wife was given 5 minutes. They said to her, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. So she came in and she held my hand. She said, honey, I love you so much. And we had a few words, and she said, you seem awfully calm. You seem awfully okay with all this. Aren't you even a bit scared or nervous? And this is not really good news here. When you're not going in to get your tonsils out, they're going to open your chest up and stop your heart, saw open your rib cage, and do open heart surgery. I said, honey, I know what they're going to do. It's all okay. She said, how can that be okay with you? I said, sweetheart, only one of two things can happen. I either come out of the surgery and I'm better than ever, or I don't, or I do the thing that some people call die, and I'll be home with God. Either way, I win. She said, wow, you really believe that, don't you? I said, I sure do. I can't lose. I can't lose here. Wow. But I love you, sweetheart. I love you to pieces, and I'll be with you always, even unto the end of time. I'm not leaving your side, whether I'll be in the physical or the metaphysical. You can't get away from me. We gave each other a little smooch, and she went out to the waiting room, and I went in, and I did not have a triple bypass. I did not have a quadruple bypass. I had a quintuple bypass. They took 5 arteries and tied them off and found arteries elsewhere in my heart and replaced them. And I came out of the surgery just fine. And I found myself feeling better than I had felt in 20 years. Finally, my heart was getting the oxygen it was supposed to be getting. I could carry a bag of groceries in from the car. Wow. I only bring up such a personal experience to give you an example of what recontextualization can do. It's a powerful, powerful tool, Andrew. And we can talk more about it as we continue with our program today. Right now, it's time to take our first break of the day. We'll stop here. Steve Farrell, the co-creator of Humanity's Team and its driving force, has a few words he'd like to share with you. Then you'll have a chance to take a little break if you'd like. And I'll be back here, let's call it at 10 minutes to the hour. I'll be back at 10 minutes to the hour. We'll see you then.
Neil, thank you. Wow, this is speaking for, I'm sure, viewers. This has been amazing, and we've got just more and more interaction across all of these Facebook pages, the viewing room, the Zoom, etc. So thank you, viewers, for being here. So a couple of quick things before we go to break. First, this program with Neil is part of the Global Oneness Summit. So, and this is the 12th year that we've celebrated the Global Oneness Summit. Neil has a program on the first day of the summit. It's called The Voice of Our Universal Self, the theme of the Global Oneness Summit is opening to our universal self, which is to oneness, to unity consciousness, to conscious living. And Neil has an amazing program with Lisa Nichols that's part of the Global Oneness Summit this year. And if you know Lisa Nichols, she's also an incredible voice on stage for consciousness. Now, there are many others. There are over 100 people that are part of the Global Oneness Summit this year. Nassim Harriman, physicist, and also Greg Braden are part of the opening panel. And they bring a science through their recent research to this summit that just talks about this whole, what astronomers and cosmologists call the Big Bang, where everything is really deeply interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent. Everything is one. They bring the science of that to this summit right at the start. So now, if you haven't already registered, and I know many of you have, but if you haven't already registered for the Global Oneness Summit, it starts with this whole Shout Out Love thing that's twice on Saturday, October 16, and it goes for 9 days through Sunday, October 24, the True Global Oneness Day. It's free of charge, and I'm sure most of you won't be able to sit at your computer or view the program for the full 9 days. So if you sign up by just leaving your name and email address, we'll send you free links so you can watch the program if you're not there live. So check that out. I think we're in all of the windows here. We're putting a link to the Global Oneness Summit so you can sign up. You could also just go to humanitiesteam.org with a Y and scroll down, and you'll see some of the featured speakers, including Neil, that are part of the summit. You can just click on the link. That'll take you to the page as well. Now, one other quick thing I want to share. The Global Oneness Summit and all of our programs, including this program today, are part of our larger mission to make conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040. So in the next 20 years, because it's the first domino, just becoming conscious and creating that flourishing in our own lives and in our own home, and then in our workplace and all throughout the world is the key thing, of course, to creating a sane world, a healthy world, a world that lives in balance. And we've created a companion initiative called PACE, Planetary Awakening, Conscious Evolution. So we're inviting people, you, viewers, people all over the world to help us pick up the pace, because we're not on a pace today for us to be living consciously all over the world 20 years from now. Now, part of our strategy for picking up the pace is we've created this subscription platform called Humanity Stream Plus. Neil has over 54 programs on Humanity Stream Plus now. We're going to put a link in the window. If you go to humanitiesteam.org/stream, this is another way to get to the page. You'll see all of the programs, masterclasses with Michael Bernard Beckwith and many. Neil Donald Walsh has his masterclass. There are many masterclasses. There are actually hundreds of online programs that are part of this subscription platform. And there's a 7-day free trial. So I invite you to check out the page. And if you're living consciously and you're, as a viewer, I'm sure you are, you wouldn't be here. Go up to browse at the top left, like hit Neil Donald Walsh, you'll see all of the programs he's part of, or Deepak Chopra or Marianne Williamson, or whoever your favorite conscious leaders might be. Put them in browse and it'll show you all of the programs that these leaders have participated in that are part of the subscription platform. So and then it's a little more than $1 a day if it's something that you choose to register for. But start out with a 7-day free trial. Check out all of Neil's programs. There are many fantastic programs that Neil's created that are part of the Humanity Stream Plus platform. Okay, with that, enjoy your break, and we're going to be back at 10 minutes to the hour. We're just going to have a little gone to break thing up here on screen. So the program continues. Don't go away. Just go grab yourself a kombucha or a glass of water, put your feet up, come back here in about a little less than 15 minutes. And we're going to get back into the program with Neil. Okay, everybody. And thank you so much for being here. Gratitude. And we'll be back here very shortly. Talk soon.
You're on.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Glad you're here. We have much more wonderful information to share with you today in this fascinating program that we've called the God Solution. Say earlier, I did mention the 10 illusions of humans. I want to just share with you, I promised I would share with you briefly what they are. If you'd like to know more about that, I can tell you exactly how to find out more about that. But I was told in the Conversations with God dialogue that there are 10 illusions of humans. That is 10 ways that we're looking at life that are illusory, that have nothing to do with ultimate reality. The 10 illusions of humans are, number one, that need exists, that somehow we need something in particular in order to be happy, joyful, fulfilled. And I know that's an illusion because it's simply not true at a spiritual level. Now, these illusions have to do with our experience of ourselves as human spiritual entities. A lot of these illusions do not apply or do not seem to apply to our physical reality, but they do apply to who we are as spiritual entities. And when we place our spiritual experience in the space of our physical encounters with life, we have recontextualized our life, which answers Andrew's question about recontextualization. So at a spiritual level, need does not exist. And when we move that illusion into our physical experience, and how would I say it? I want to almost say convince ourselves that we actually don't need anything in particular to be physically happy as well. There are things we desire, of course, things we want, naturally, but, we don't necessarily need them. We don't require them in order to be totally happy human beings on the earth, and then to share that happiness with others. What's ironic about that is that when we set aside the idea that we need something in particular to be happy, and we allow ourselves to be happy without it, and then when we share that happiness and that joy with others, the irony is we wind up very often, there's no guarantee here, but very often we wind up receiving all the things that we decided we could be happy without. And now they arise in our life anyway. So let's just do the list of 10 illusions. The illusion that need exists, the illusion that failure exists, the illusion that disunity exists. That's a big illusion that we are approaching in the work of the humanities team. Excuse me, the idea that disunity exists is a real illusion, and disunity, that is the idea that we are not all one. The idea of disunity is one of the biggest illusions of humans. Illusion number 4, the idea of insufficiency, that insufficiency exists. That couldn't be true if we were all one. But we create the illusion of insufficiency by creating the illusion that we are disunified, that we are not all one. And when we think that we're not all one, when we separate ourselves into individual units, then we imagine ourselves to be, or some of those units imagine themselves to be insufficient. There's not enough for them to be totally happy. And in some cases, not even enough for them to totally survive. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we take a look at idea heroes. We need some idea heroes on this planet, and that's where you all come in. So the idea that insufficiency exists produces the illusion that requirement exists. If it's possible for some of us to be insufficient, we don't have sufficient food, we don't have sufficient money, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough of whatever we think we need to be totally happy, then there must be requirements in order to get those things that we think that we need in order to be happy. And then the next illusion is the illusion that judgment exists. If we don't do what's required to gather what we need to be happy, then we will be judged. Surely we will judge ourselves, and others may judge us as well for it. After judgment comes condemnation, illusion number 7, that condemnation exists. Then the illusion that superiority, or I should say conditionality, the illusion that conditionality exists. That is, everything is conditioned on one thing or another. And if you do not pass judgment, you will realize that you have not met the conditions that are necessary to receive the love of everyone else on this planet and of God itself. And then superiority exists, the idea, the illusion of superiority, that I'm superior to you because I understand all of this and you don't. And because I'm doing all the right things and you're not. And finally, the 10th illusion of humans, the illusion that ignorance exists, that you can't know all of this, that it's possible to be ignorant with regard to it. And therefore, you can't know any of it. Now, what's interesting about that list of 10 illusions is that you can turn it upside down. You can make the last illusion on the list the first illusion on the list, that ignorance exists. And then the cards fall the other way, but the cards fall either way, creating the 10 illusions of humans that produce the experience that we are now having on Earth. Boy, this is really, really, really powerful information. And if you haven't seen that list and read about it, you do want to pick up the book. I'm not trying to sell another, 20 or 30 books. I promise you, that's not what's going on here. I'm not bragging, just saying millions of books have been sold on these topics. So we're not trying to get you to buy a copy. But if you think you'd like to know more about this, excuse me, and you haven't read about it, then you will want to pick up the book Communion with God. Communion with God is the book that describes one chapter for each of the 10 illusions of humans. All right, I promised I would tell you about that, and I did want to do so. I want to now start moving into our description of idea heroes and why we need idea heroes. And then we'll go to the list of participants and see if we can bring some more people on stage with us. Natalie and Bernice and Lindahl and Sally and Galaxy J2, who we've been trying to bring on for the past hour. We'll see, excuse me, we'll see if we can get Galaxy J2 on as well. But before we go there and before we hear from Noah with some written questions, let me just talk to you a bit about the God solution and where idea heroes come in. As I said earlier in the program, we're facing what I call the God dilemma. We simply don't understand. Why doesn't God fix the mess that we're in on the earth? Why does God allow all these things to go on and on and on and on and on? For a long time, we've had millennia of challenging moments on the earth. What's up here? What's up? It's God's job to allow us to produce the solution to these problems that we are facing, to all the problems we've ever faced. God's job is to give us the power and the ability to do that for ourselves. It's not God's job. In my understanding, God does not see God's job as simply fixing everything, because then there'd be no way for us to engage the most important single process in the universe, evolution, or what we could call growth. Your children will not grow in any way, certainly not in any important way, that will allow them to survive happily and express themselves joyfully in life if you do every single thing for them. You can't continue tying your child's shoes when they're 16 years old, or 13, or 12, or 9, or 8. I mean, somewhere along the way, you stop tying your child's shoes, to use a metaphor. Somewhere along the way, you stop doing everything that you once had to do for your children, because you simply give them the ability to do those things for themselves. We have precisely the same relationship with what we call God. So it's not God's job to come down here and fix everything. It's God's desire to give all of us the power, the ability to fix them. Sadly, human beings are not using that ability at the highest level. That's why humanity's team has engaged in the process of creating a new understanding of who we are in relationship to each other, that we are all one. Steve Farrell was mentioning just before the break that sadly, we're not moving at a pace that will allow us to experience our unity, our oneness, and therefore to really cause most of humanity's problems to literally go away. Most of humanity's, well, I want to say man-made problems, human-made problems would disappear overnight if we decided that we are all one. But we're not quite there yet, and we're not moving at a pace that will allow us to get to that place for the largest number of people on the planet in the next 20 years or so. Excuse me. Oh boy, that tastes good. A little bit of fresh water. Or is that water? It's just clear liquid. Maybe there's something else in there. What did they put in there? Well, we'll forget about it. Don't worry about it. I'll be fine. So here's the deal. The God solution, excuse me, the God solution is for us to take things into our own hands and to solve the problems ourselves. And we have the ability and the power to do it. This does not take some kind of extraterrestrial intervention or some kind of divine intervention. The divine intervention is the use of the divinity within us to resolve the problems and meet the challenges with which we are confronted. And there are many, many ways to do that. In the book, The God Solution, the whole second half of the book talks about how we can use, it's an instruction manual actually, on how we can use metaphysics. So the mechanics of metaphysics are described in the second half of that book called The God Solution. But now there's something else that I want to share with you that's really important for us to consider. Then we'll get back to some of the calls, okay? Here's where idea heroes come in. The challenge we're facing on the planet Earth right now, and have been for eons, for millennia, is that we think that the best way to proceed with our own evolution is to model our behavior on our understanding of God. We should be godlike. We should seek to, if I could put it this way, imitate the divine. If we could act divinely, our individual and collective problems would go away. You know, that's true. If we chose to act divinely, our individual and collective problems, by and large, would disappear. But we must have an accurate understanding of the divine. Because if we're acting divinely based on a misunderstanding of what it means to act divinely, now we got a problem. Now we have what I call the God dilemma. We got a real problem. And that's what we've been doing for thousands and thousands of years, which is why we are facing the problems we're facing today. Because we're acting the way we think that God acts with us. And here's what we think that God does in the way he acts with us. We think that God loves us. We've been taught by all the great religions, God loves you, God loves you, God loves you. Sometimes people even say, as they say goodbye to each other, God love you, God love you. Bye-bye, see you tomorrow, God love you. So we think that God loves us, and we're right about that. But we think that God also judges us, and that God condemns us if what God judges us for is serious enough to warrant our being condemned. And if we are condemned by God, then we are punished by God. So we believe in a God who judges, condemns, and punishes. And that's the basis of virtually all of the world's major religions, and many of the world's not so major religions. I mean, in terms of membership, the number of members. Do you know, I don't know whether you know it or not, but there are 4,300 religions, 4,300 and some odd number of religions, actual organized religions on the face of the earth right now. And of those organized religions, maybe 10 or 20 have the most members. And the top 5, we can probably guess what they are. The top 5 in terms of membership numbers. And those religions teach us of a God who presumably demonstrates his love by judging us, by condemning us, and by punishing us if we don't do what God demands. Now, what are those demands? Well, that's why we have 4,000 different religions, because the religions are trying to tell us what God wants, what God needs, how we should live our lives, the best way to proceed with our lives. That's what the religions are all about. And there are over 4,000 of them, but even the major religions cannot agree on a single idea that would unify all the world's major religions. That's the God solution. And that's where you can come in. But we need some idea heroes to do it. And that's also where you come in. Here's the idea that would change everything. Supposing that God did not judge anybody. Supposing that God does not condemn anybody. I know this is antithetical to what all the world's religions teach, or most of them for sure. I know this is blasphemy to many people. I understand this is apostasy. This is heresy. I've been called a heretic. Actually, just yesterday on my Facebook page, I was called a heretic. So I understand. But I was told in conversations with God something quite extraordinary, that it would take an idea hero like you, if you choose to be an idea hero, to embrace, to practice, to understand, and much less to share with others. And the one idea that it would take is the idea that we're wrong about God. God does not. I mean, what if it were true that God does not judge us, condemn us, or punish us for anything? What if it was true that God does not need anything from us, not even a particular behavior? What if it were true that God does not even need us to believe in God? What if God was totally okay, even if we don't believe in God? See, can you imagine? I mean, could it be true that we are children of a lesser God? Have you heard that phrase, children of a lesser God? Are we really children of a God who needs something? Or who requires something in order to feel okay about us, in order to allow us to return to God in what we call heaven or paradise? Is that the God we believe in? And how far does this go? How far does this judgment and this condemnation and punishing go? Is it true, for instance, just as an example, is it true that if you even belong to the wrong religion, that if you believe in God and love God and seek to obey God, but you belong to the wrong religion, You're not in the right religion. You're going to hell anyway. Is it really true that God says, you know what? It doesn't matter how kind you are, how generous you are, how loving you are, how forgiving you are, how compassionate you are. None of those things matter. Because if you don't belong to the right religion, you can be all of those. You can be the nicest person in the world, but I'm going to send you to hell anyway because you didn't join the right church. What can I tell you? I mean, I don't, Dems the rules. What can I tell you? I'm not making this stuff up. Billions of people believe this. And because they believe in a God who is judging, condemning, and punishing, they equally believe that that is not an inappropriate way, but a very okay way to interact with each other. And so we love each other with the instruments of judgment, condemnation, and punishment. Even nations even interact that way because we think that's the way to be the highest human that we can be, to imitate God. But if we misunderstand God, if we have totally misjudged, talk about judging, if we have totally misassessed who and what God really is, then we're the ones who are making a mess of it and creating the circumstances, conditions, and situations that produce the outcomes that are generated on this planet. And in which we now live and have to deal with all the outcomes that we have collectively created. Now, what if we decided to be an idea hero? To be heroic with regard to the ideas that we embrace and share with others. Let me tell you what an idea hero is, just so you're real clear. Galileo was an idea hero. Galileo said many hundreds of years ago that the earth revolved around the sun. Of course, the church taught at that time, I'm talking about the Catholic Church, the church taught that the sun revolved around the earth. The church's firm teaching was that the earth is the center of the universe. We are the most important beings in the universe, and the earth is the center of the universe, and the sun revolves around the earth. When Galileo came up with his scientifically provable statement that it's the earth that revolves around the sun, he was excommunicated. That is, he was removed from the church and told he was going to hell. He was condemned. He was judged, condemned, and it was said that God would punish him for sharing a teaching that violated the message of the church. It took 356 years for the church to remove its condemnation, to rescind its excommunication of his soul. Of course, obviously, he was dead for a long time. A lot of good that did him in his physical life, but presumably, if he has a soul, and he does, presumably the church rescinding its excommunication of him benefited his soul. But of course, the truth is his excommunication didn't do anything. I mean, once he did the thing called die, once he celebrated his continuation day, God didn't say to him, you know, pal, you could come up here, you could be with me, you could be in heaven and you could rejoice, but what can I tell you? The church excommunicated you. So because they said that you taught the wrong thing. So you were an idea hero, because an idea hero is someone who's brave enough to think, to embrace, and to actually share an idea that she or he knows most people will disagree with, and you know it ahead of time, but you share it anyway. That's what Galileo did. And God said when he came to heaven, come on. You're not excommunicated by me. You're only excommunicated by that particular organization that thinks it knows better. And 356 years later, the Catholic Church said, we were wrong. It turns out that the Earth does revolve around the sun, as does every other planet in the solar system, and the galaxy and the universe is revolving around their own suns and their own planet. Wow. Ignaz Semmelweis was an idea hero. In the 1800s, he was a doctor, a Hungarian doctor. He had the nerve to suggest that such a thing as germs existed. Until that time, medical science did not believe in the thing that we call germs, believe it or not. But he said, there's a reason why we have such a high infant mortality rate, because he noticed that doctors were coming from autopsies to the birthing room without sterilizing their hands, because there was no such thing as sterilization. So he said, what if we washed our hands in alcohol or created some kind of a sterilizing liquid that could rid our hands of the germs before we go from one procedure to the next? Do you think it would reduce the mortality rate in this hospital? And it did, dramatically. It cut the mortality rate by 2/3, the mortality of infants in that hospital in which he worked. I think he worked in the hospital in Budapest. But you know what happened? The medical profession did not believe him. They said he was crazy. They drummed him out of the profession. The poor man died in an insane asylum, in an institution. He died because everyone told him he was crazy. It took another 120 years for the medical profession to say, you know what? There really are germs. Semmelweis was right. Wow. It took that long for us to admit, but he was an idea hero. That is, he held on to an idea and he shared it with others, even knowing that everyone was going to disagree. Barbara Mcclintock was an idea hero. She decided she's a geneticist in more contemporary times. And in the 20th century, she said to such a thing called jumping genes. They told her she was crazy. They told her she was wrong, totally wrong. What are you, Barbara, you're killing yourself in the profession. Why are you talking these insane ideas? There's no such thing as a jumping gene that moves from one element to another, just jumping across without having some element to swim in or to move around in. And they said she was crazy. Until 1983, when she won the Nobel Prize in Medicine, when people came to their senses and said, actually, she was right. My point with all of this, thank you for letting me ramble on for about 7 minutes about that. My point in rambling on for 7 minutes about that, we could be very right about what everyone thinks we're wrong about. Is it possible? Is it possible, just possible, that there's something we don't fully understand here about God and about life and about who we are, the understanding of which would change everything? Did you hear the question I just asked you? Don't let that pass you by. Please write it down. Is it possible, just possible, that there's something we don't fully understand here about God, about life, and about ourselves, the understanding of which would change everything? The answer, of course, is yes. But if we think, no, it's not possible, we understand all there is to understand about God. It's in the book. Just read the good book. This book, that book, or the other. There are only 267 holy scriptures on the planet. Read the holy scripture of your choice, because there's where all the answers are. Or is it possible that there are still some things that we have not fully understood? And I'm suggesting that there is. And here's what I think would solve all the man-made problems on the earth, or certainly the largest number of them. by changing the global ethic, changing our political, our economic, our social, and our spiritual ethic, by creating a new definition of our highest behavior, by creating a new definition of God. What if God was not judging, condemning, and punishing? What if God was, in fact, pure love? Now, when I give this talk in front of audiences in a group, in a room, somebody inevitably stands up and says, "Oh, Neil, are you telling me that I listened to you for the past 15 minutes and your revolutionary idea is that God is love?" Well, everyone agrees on that. Nobody disagrees. Everyone says God is love. I say, wait a minute, hold on. I didn't say that God is love. I said God is pure love. And I insist on putting those two words together because that's a different kind of love than the love that we humans express with each other. Pure love is a love that needs, requires, requests, hopes for, and demands nothing in return. Nothing. Because God needs nothing. Dare we to believe in a God of pure love? Dare we to share with others this new definition of God, that God is pure love, that needs, requires, demands, and expects nothing in return? If you believe that, and if you share that with others, if you join in the work of humanity's team by sharing another idea that no one, I shouldn't say no one, but that not enough people believe in, the idea that we are all one, that we are one with the divine, one with God. We are all one with God and with each other. Are you willing to be an idea hero? Have you already shared that idea in your own heart and shared it with others as well? Have you embraced it individually and begun to share it with others and joined in the work of creating a world that embraces the notion that we are all one? Can you imagine what that would change in our behavior? Can you imagine what that would change in our economics, in our politics, in our social systems, and in our spiritual understandings? What a change it would make if we simply embraced a single idea that we are all one and what we are made of is pure love that needs nothing in return. That's the God solution. There's more I want to share with you and more I will share with you as this program goes on today. But in a nutshell, that's the God solution. Dare we embrace that solution and render it functional, not just conceptual, but render it functional in our lives? Dare you, double dare you. Double dare you to love each other, needing nothing in return. I spoke about this earlier when I said that the irony of that is that when we need and require nothing in return and love everyone and everything in that way, that which we might have at one time imagined or desired we would get in return comes to us automatically. It flows to us without us even having to reach for it or seek it or yearn for it. It flows to us automatically because that's how life works. I could, of course, be wrong about all of this. What do I know? I could be wrong. But I don't think so. And this is the information that I received in my conversations with God. All right, let's see how this lands with you. As I said, we have a few more ideas to share with you, ways in which we can. One powerful way in particular, somebody remind me if I don't bring it up, make sure that before we say goodbye, that I bring up the single most powerful change in how we approach the use of the tools that God has given us, the metaphysical tools that can change our individual and global reality. But before I get into that long little lecture, let me see what is on your mind. Natalia is.
We have a number of hands raised. I'd like to start with Mirko.
Oh, Mirko from Italy. Mirko, wonderful. If you promise not to talk for 17 minutes. Because Mirko and I are good friends. Mirko and I we talk to each other every week.
Okay.
Yeah, I do a video program every week as part of twice a week on Mondays at 5:30 Pacific time and on Thursdays at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. It's part of the advanced integration program. I can tell you more about how to get into that program if you'd like to know. Just go to integratecwg.com. Very simple, integratecwg.com, and you'll learn how to get into that program. And Mirko and I are old friends. He's on that program almost every week. But he loves to just explain everything so deeply that we wind up having the Neil Mirko show. So Mirko, what's your question? Go right to the question.
Hi, Neil. Excuse me, because I am often long because my English brings me to speak a lot.
It's not your English at all. You have perfect English. You speak, we understand you perfectly well.
Thank you, Nick. The question is if you can give us some insight on desire, the difference between need and desire, and how to expand our desire in our life.
Yes. The difference between need and desire is very simple. We're all adults here. So I'm going to use a sexual reference, a romantic reference.
Yes.
Because as I said, we're all adults here. So we all understand what I'm saying. If I approach my wife with need, it's totally different than if I approach my wife with desire. And so there's a huge difference in my wife's experience of me. If I approach my wife with a romantic desire, or if I approach my wife with what I would call a sexual need, the dynamic is totally different. And if she denies or is just not in the space right now for that particular experience, if she thinks it's something I need, she will feel totally different toward me than if she simply realizes that I desire it, but I don't require it. So desire and require in English are not the same word. There's a difference between desire and require. And what I was advised in conversations with God is not to use a requirement and turn a requirement from a desirement. There's no such word in the English language as desirement, but we've created a new word. We've made our requirements desirements and our desirements requirements. That is, we've decided in our society that what I desire, what I want, is what I have to have in order for me to be happy. Not all of us have done that, but many, many, many people have done that. And that's what has created so much of the conflict. Political conflict? No, you don't understand. What I desire is what I require. And you have to do what I say. We call those people dictators. Or sometimes we call them Republicans. No, just joking, guys. Relax, I was just having fun. Maybe we call them Democrats. But the point is that we start saying, you don't understand, folks, what I desire is what I require. And there's a huge difference between desiring something and needing it in order to be happy. So how I explain the difference is desire is something that we feel we would immensely enjoy. But need is something that we have convinced ourselves we can't be happy without. And those are two entirely different energies.
I agree.
That's how I would explain the difference.
Yes, I agree. I would like, I have finished, but I would like to practice in my life the capacity, the ability to expand the desire, the level of desire in every area.
Me too. And I have. Expanding our desire is as simple as having an imagination.
Mm-hmm.
I have a wonderful imagination.
Yes.
And so I expand my desire by engaging my imagination.
Okay.
And using that tool to decide what it is it would be fun and joyful and divine to experience. So I imagine a world and in which there are no limitations to what I could experience. I don't mean what I could physically experience. I mean what I could experience as a total being who's both physical and spiritual. And boy, you know, my willingness to expand my desire all of my life is, I'm sure, what has led me to the wonderful, I'm not bragging, just saying, the wonderful, joyful life that I have been experiencing the past 25 years. Not just with my books, not just because of the books, but my relationship life. I have this wonderful, wonderful lady that I live with, this wonderful, I have a family with 9 children. I live in a beautiful city. I mean, you know what? Honestly, Mirko, I can't imagine how life could be much better for me than it is right now. Thank you, God. But is it a result of my positive attitude and the result of my willingness to imagine that everything I desire could come true? Yes, I believe that it is. God's my pal. God's my friend. I have a friendship with God. And God has only one word in her vocabulary. Yes.
Thank you. Imagination, especially in difficult moments for me. Thank you.
Precisely.
Thank you.
And also not needing a particular outcome. So even if they find you guilty, it's okay.
Of course. Thank you. I have finished for today.
Thank you, Mirko.
Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you. Neil, would you like another live question?
Whatever. Yeah, I love the live courses.
Pick
And it's
between
okay.
Natalia and Joshua.
Let's go to Natalia because I think she had her hand up first. See, the hands go up in order of the way they're. So Natalia.
All right, so Joshua was actually first, but
like I said, Joshua was first, exactly like I just said. So since Joshua was first, Joshua gets to go first. Joshua, what is your question?
Okay, let me bring him on. And so there we go. Go ahead and unmute yourself and turn on your camera, please.
Wow, that's a fascinating question.
There we go.
Am I on?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Okay, because I don't, now I see myself. Okay. First, sharing, if I may.
Wow, Joshua, what a handsome guy you are. Look at you could be a model. You could be a male model.
Come on. I'm from Israel. And first, let me share. I first read the first conversation with book in Hebrew 20 odd years ago. It was just few years after my realization experience, self-realization. So I started reading it, and after a chapter or two, I put it aside. I said, that's imagination of a person. God cannot speak with New Age terminology. Okay. About a year ago, I bought and read Friendship with God. And I was overwhelmed. I mean, That's it. That's it. That's the correct info. Then I order and bought all the Conversation with God book series. So far read the first 3, and of course, Friendship with God. The others are waiting. And, oh man, it's, okay, now the point is that, well, let's go to the question, because if I can go on talking a long time and it's out of place. In the first Conversation with God book, God speaks about the way humans abuse the planet, which is so correct, so correct. And God says, you don't have much time to, I mean, not because of God may be angry or punishing, but because of, that's the natural laws, and we are just acting the way that natural laws, civilization on planet Earth as we know it today cannot continue. And we are very close to the tripping point, to the no return point. Do we still have time?
Yes. My understanding is that we have roughly, it's hard to measure these things, and there's no way to be certain. But my personal understanding is that I was told something like between 30 and 50 years. But that seems like a long time, but in universal time, it's nothing. It's a blink of an eye. As you know, I'm 78 years old, and I got here overnight. Only a few years ago, I was 50, and a couple of months ago, I was 37. So I understand how fast 30 years can go. We're talking about nothing. So unless we move forward with all deliberate speed and use every one of the resources that are available to us as a human species, and there are many resources that are available to us, but we have to move forward with deliberate intention and with speed, and we have to do it collectively. That's why Humanities Team exists, because we are urging people to get together and move forward collectively, because individually it's going to be difficult. Collectively, nothing is impossible.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
One more thing is, it looks to me that there isn't just one universe or just one Milky Way.
You're correct.
There are almost infinite number. With any decision each individual takes,
yes,
that individual moves to another reality, and all those realities are exist in parallel.
Simultaneously, yes.
Okay, so, and one more thing is, in the first 3 or at least 2 that I freshly read, Conversation with God books, God speaks about self-realization, self with capital S, which is the experience of God and of what gods talk about. But there is a culprit, because of the experience doesn't give full intellectual understanding or full picture intellectually. That's why, to my view, both are needed. The actual experiential realization of the one, which is the only thing that exists, plus proper intellectual understanding, which, to my view, the best presentation comes from the Conversation with God books. But yet, I think it may be helpful for one to bear in mind that the human mind cannot know fully the reality.
You're
reality
absolutely right.
of oneness.
With your permission, Joshua, I'm going to
Yeah.
move on to another caller, but I want to summarize what you said. I agree with you 1000%. And the Conversation with God, the other books which you haven't had a chance to read yet, but there are other books in the series which say exactly that. They say exactly that. Among the statements is that life will never make sense to your mind completely. You cannot use your mind alone, because life will never make sense to your mind alone. You're going to have to include and find a way to have access to what I call your soul, or the larger existing wisdom in the universe. And that is profoundly true. But there are ways to do that. And when we join together in finding ways to do that, we will in fact be able to access the totality of the reality. One day I'm going to write a book called The Totality of the Reality. There's a great poetic justice there. The Totality of the Reality. Yeah, it's not a bad title. But thank you, Joshua. I think your observations are right on the money. And let me share with all of you guys, and thank you for your contribution, Joshua. Let me share with all of you folks. I don't, Joshua made a statement that he thinks that, in some ways, the Conversations with God books offer some of the best intellectual examples and some of the best intellectual understandings. Those books were not given to me to be the sole source of them. I want you to all know that those books were meant to be given to you, to all of you, to all of us. So I'm simply a stenographer. Honestly, and I mean that sincerely. I'm simply a stenographer. I took dictation. And did I take dictation very well? Yes, I'm a good stenographer, but the ideas are not mine. They did not come from me. I sincerely, deeply, earnestly want you to know that those ideas, in my belief, came directly from the divine to and through all of us. That's how even you came to those messages, because they came through you simply in this particular way, just in this particular way. But because they came through you by a particular device does not mean they didn't come through you. They came through you in that way and led you to open a particular book. But, all I did was take dictation. So if you feel that there's been any benefit to you from having read any of the Conversations with God books, tell everybody about them. Tell the whole world about them. Tell everybody you know, hey, you know what? You might find it interesting to read this book. And by the way, for Joshua and all the rest of you, the latest of the Conversations with God books is called Conversations with God Book 4, subtitle Awaken the Species. Look for that book if you haven't read it. Conversations with God Book 4, Awaken the Species, because it's a profoundly important book for this day and time. And the apotheosis of the Conversations with God material, that is the culmination of all of it, is the book we've been talking about today, The God Solution. It's a book you don't want to miss. You want to grab a copy of that book as soon as you can, because it offers you a scope of the whole situation and how we can create the God solution in very simple and direct, straightforward language. The title, again, is The God Solution. Now, I think Natalia has had a lot of patience with me, and so she might now have an opportunity to share with me what her question might be. Natalia, welcome to the space.
Come on, Natalia. And there she is. Need you to unmute yourself and show your video, please. Where'd she go?
Hello.
There she is. Hey.
Hi, Natalia. Tell me where you live.
Tell you where I live?
Yeah, where do you live?
In Costa Rica.
Oh, nice. Good. Welcome. Well, the reason I ask is I like to notice that we have people really calling from all over the world. And that's exciting to me because it means that that the people who are engaged in this process of learning more about Humanity's Team and learning more about this whole forward movement are from all over the world. So how can I serve you today?
So I was
By the way, I love
listening.
I love your earrings. I want them. I need those earrings. They're as you are, they're gorgeous.
Thank you. So I'm thinking about being an idea hero, and you mentioned, I understand how important it is for everyone to find a God that is loving. I feel it completely, and at the same time, I sometimes run out of courage. And I guess what I'm asking is how to connect with the courage that it takes, and that it takes to share, let's say, my experience of a loving God. And I ask it because I am a psychotherapist, and in my
Practice.
I certainly share it with my clients one-on-one, and I believe that's what helps them heal, right? It's love. The love is the one that heals. But I feel the calling to share it more openly, to like share it through Facebook Lives or whatever it is. But at the same time, I feel like being a psychotherapist, people are going to say, oh, she's crazy. And it's so easy to make the therapist the crazy one.
Yes.
Right? Like, you're crazy if you go to a therapist.
Yeah.
Transference. Now it's obvious that she's crazy.
Yeah, transference, classic transference. Make the therapist wrong.
Right. So I'm a part of me gets afraid, like I'm not going to be I'm going to be judged so strongly, so severely, that I'm not going to get enough clients to survive my life. I know it's a fear, but it does take heroism. I mean, that word was chosen for a reason. And yes. I would like to move past it because it's just a fear. It's not love. I would love to hear your comment about it.
Yeah, let me offer this. First of all, I think the way to not be judged too severely is to make sure that you don't come off as a person who's making someone else wrong about what they believe or about what they think about God. To offer, whenever you offer these ideas about a loving God, a God who loves purely, by the way, everyone believes in a loving God, but not everyone believes a God who loves with pure love, with a love that needs nothing back from us. So, but to make sure that you offer it simply as an alternative, rather than something that is, set in stone, and this is the way it is, folks, and you better get this,
Right.
So what I do is I let people know that, hey, you know what? This is an alternative. Here's an idea for you to consider. Give it your consideration. And if you don't agree with it, which I tell everyone, by the way, if you don't agree with it, throw it out. And I tell everyone whenever I give a lecture, whenever I give a presentation on one of my books, whenever I offer a media interview, I inevitably say, you know what? I could be wrong about all of this. And I don't say it as a form. I actually mean it. I say, I realize this is a radical idea. I realize this is an extraordinary, almost theologically revolutionary idea, and it may not be right. In fact, my dear Natalia, if you read Conversations with God, you will see actually in the dialogue books, there must be 8 or 10 places in the dialogue books where the voice of God says, don't believe a word of what I'm saying. Don't believe what I'm saying. Try it, live it, and if it doesn't work for you, throw it away. Because in all spiritual matters, you must be your own authority. In fact, in all important life matters, you must be your own authority. So if you don't, and Conversations with God tells us in very specific terms, throw the books away. I mean, burn them, toss them out. If you don't deeply agree with or deeply resonate with or see the truth within you and don't resonate with what you're hearing. It's simply an alternative idea. But you know what? And this is what I would say to any client or any public, any media person, anybody who criticized me. I would say, can I share something with you? George Bernard Shaw told all of us, all great truth begins as blasphemy. And I tell people, write that on your bathroom mirror so you don't forget it. All great truths have begun as blasphemies. If they weren't unbelievable at first, we would already believe them. So, but now, in terms of getting rid of fear of what it will do, if you speak in these ways, people will, where you're simply offering an alternative idea that may or may not be absolutely true, but it's a possible new way of approaching life, since we notice that life is not working right now the way we have been approaching it as a collective and as individuals. So if you approach it and if you share your ideas in that way, people will see you as wise, not as crazy. Because you're not saying, this is definitely how it is. You're saying, this is an idea that I hold, and I could be wrong, but possibly give it some consideration. No one will think you're crazy for simply offering an alternative idea.
Thank you.
And here's something else that I do. I once went to a lecture that I was going to give at a very large venue. There were about 800 people in the auditorium, but outside of the hall, when I got there, there was a group of people from a local church marching up and down, picketing, and they had big signs, that I was an instrument of the devil, and that if people listened to what I had to say, they would go to hell and so forth. When I got out of the car, I drove up, a driver dropped me off, and I got out of the car, and I said, could I talk to the minister who's, the pastor of this church? They said, yeah, he's right over there. So I went over there and I said, do you really believe that I am an instrument of the devil? He said, absolutely. You're teaching blasphemy. This is craziness. I said, thank you for having the courage. Thank you for having the courage of your convictions. Even if we don't agree on any other thing, can we agree that it takes as much courage to agree with me as it takes to disagree with me? Thank you for having the courage to disagree with me. Would you be willing to come inside with me and talk to those 800 people that are waiting to hear from me? Let's give them a night they'll never forget. Let's have me talk for 10 minutes and you talk for 10 minutes. And I'll talk for 5 minutes and you talk for 5 minutes. Let's have my point of view and your point of view, my point of view and your point of view. He said, really? I can tell them that I think you're wrong? I said, absolutely. Let's have both points of view. And he said, you're on, let's do it. And we shook hands and we went into the hall and we gave that audience a talk they never expected. And we got a huge standing ovation when the night was over, because they saw a living demonstration of what it means to be okay with the fact that not everyone shares the same idea, but everyone shares the same desire to find a way to solve our collective problems. And it was a night that I'll never forget.
Yeah, I imagine. The first time I met you was in a Larry King live show, something like that. Larry King. Well, it was like 2000, and the thing that struck me the most was I wasn't feeling that great that day. I wasn't feeling very good, and I was scrolling. I was just changing channels in the TV, and there was this show. I just stayed for a moment, and then I heard you, and something inside me was so moved, and it was saying, this is incredible. This man is telling the truth. He's telling the truth. He's telling the truth. He's not afraid he's gonna get killed. He's telling the truth. He's so brave. And it was so impactful for me. So thank you.
You're very kind to say those things, and I'm very grateful and humbled to hear those words come from you. Thank you so much for saying such a nice thing to me.
You're welcome. I just want to say, please make sure that all your books are in Spanish. Please make sure that all your books are in Spanish, and that they're available for people. Tomorrow's God, I cannot find in Spanish, and on Home with God, I gave that book. I gave that book to everyone dealing with loss and thinking about death and all these things, and we need it in Spanish.
I'll do the very best I can. I hear what you're saying, and I'll do the best that I can do to see if we can find a Spanish publisher who wants to put out these books.
I'm sure you will. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia, for being with us on the program today. And thank all of you for choosing to be here today. It's so wonderful to see all of you here. And there's more to come. We're not quite done yet, but we're going to take a little bit of a break, just a little bit of a refresher break. So let's make this a short one so we can continue with this exchange. I'd like to suggest that we talk, we maybe have a 10 or 12 minute break. I'd like to come back with you at around, let's call it 15 minutes past the hour. And here with a few words that he would like to share with you is my wonderful, wonderful friend. Talk about a person who's brave. I can't even get into it. I won't get into it, but he's a very brave guy for what he's done in his life. So Steve.
Okay, back at you, Neil. Yeah, thank you. And Natalia is the country coordinator for Humanities team in Costa Rica. So
wow. Okay,
Natalia,
talk about bravery. Yeah, nice.
Coming on screen there.
Nice.
Yeah, there are 43 countries there where we have coordinators and contacts, and they're just giving freely of their time to be lighthouses out in the world like Natalia. So shout out to all of you all, and Christine, who leads that group. So quickly, I want to just share, this is part of this workshop of Neil's is part of the Global Oneness Summit this year. And this is the 12th year that we're broadcasting the Global Oneness Summit. The theme is opening to your universal self. And our universal self is divinity. So as Neil has been sharing during this program, that there's no such thing as separation, right? That it's an illusion. It's one of the illusions that Neil was talking about, that there's no such thing as disunity, that everything actually is all one. It's what the astronomers and cosmologists have shared, that there was this big bang and there's this living and breathing universe. And the really neat thing about this year's summit, the 2021 Global Oneness Summit, is that we lead it off with scientists. At the beginning of the program, the opening program is with Nassim Haramein, who you may know as a physicist, and Greg Braden, who's a geologist. And they bring in during the summit, the science that shares that we actually are deeply interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent, that there is no such thing as disunity. And Nassim, with his incredible research, shares that in the last decades in physics, there hasn't been any major breakthrough. Very little new that's been shared in physics up until now in this research that he's bringing forward as a physicist that brings forward the research and the evidence that we are actually all one, that we're made of stardust, all of us. We're all part of the divine. So I want to invite you to sign up for the Global Oneness Summit. It starts a week from Saturday. Neil's program is on that Saturday, the 16th, I believe. It's called The Voice of Universal Oneness, and Neil is with Lisa Nichols, an amazing, really an astounding panel. It's a free 9-day program, Global Oneness Summit. I think we're putting links in the window so you can register for that program. And then if you miss any of the 9 days of broadcast, as I'm sure everybody will, because it's about a half a day of broadcast for 9 days, we'll send you links in the evening so you can make sure to take in things that you missed during the day. Okay, so with that, we're going to just take a short break, and then we're back in about 10 minutes. And hey, thanks for being here with us on this beautiful Friday afternoon. We've got another, we're going to go until 12 o'clock Pacific. So we've got another 50 minutes here of this workshop. Don't go away. Neil will be right back. Okay, thanks everybody, and be right back with you.
Welcome back. We have about 45 minutes to go before we say goodbye. It's been wonderful to be with you. Thank you for being here with us. Welcome back. I want to, before we say goodbye, have a chance to share with you a 4-point process that's part of the God solution, which is what this retreat, what this workshop has been focused on, the God solution. And the 4-part process is going to take us into kind of a little different direction from the direction in which many self-help and personal improvement programs suggest. Okay, so it's going to be in itself a little bit of a revolutionary approach. So here's the 4-part process that's explained thoroughly in the text of the God solution. Step number 1: presume that a higher power exists. We're probably all in that category, so we don't have to work too hard about that. So step 1 is presume that a higher power exists. Step number 2, describe the higher power, not as a person, a big guy in the sky, so to speak, not so much as a human personality, but as an energy, an energetic that's self-referencing, self-sourcing, and of course, self-conscious. That is, it's aware of itself, and it can take any form that it wishes. It can take the form of a human being if it serves a particular purpose to do so, or it could take the form of any other entity living on any other planet in the cosmos. So just to be aware of all of that we're describing the higher power as an energy, and it's an energy that can be physically felt, okay? Not just an energetic, not just an amorphous energy out there in the cosmos, but an energy that can be physically felt. Step number 3, decide to call that feeling pure love. So we have a 3-step process so far. Agree that a higher power exists, agree that the higher power is an energy that can be felt, and agree to call that energy, to define it, to define that feeling as pure love. That's how pure love feels. God feels like pure love, okay? And the 4th and final step is the one that's a little revolutionary. It's an important switch. Replace thought with emotion as the item in your spiritual metaphysical toolbox to which you pay the most attention and of which you make the most use, okay? Pay the most attention and make the most use of your emotion, even more than your thought. This is a little bit different. This is where I say it's a little bit of a revolutionary new idea with regard to how to manifest the reality that you'd like to manifest. Because most of the books out there, most of the teachings for the past several hundred years have talked about the power of positive thinking. And there is power in that. I'm not making it wrong, but I think there's one more step that we can make it even more powerful. And that new step is by replacing your thinking with the emotion that your thought brings forward. That is, use this, by the way, could be one of the most powerful decisions you've ever made in your life. And that'll be especially true if the emotion that you most often encourage with regard to any particular situation or circumstance that you'd like to create is not the first emotion that comes up for you in any given situation, but in fact is God's feeling. This is why I call it the God solution. What if you used as your most powerful metaphysical tool your highest and best idea of the way you think that God feels about any circumstance or situation, if you believe in a God who makes no judgments, who simply desires for us to use the metaphysical power that she has given us to produce the outcomes that we most desire. I wanted to share with you those 4 important steps in how to implement the God solution. And again, not that I'm trying to sell, another few books, but if you'd like to know more about that in detail, I do suggest you give a good read to that latest book in the Conversations with God body of work. The book is called The God Solution. Noah had, I'm sure, a few questions that he never had a chance to ask people who've written in questions. And so rather than go back to our list of people who want to be on screen with me, and we'll get to you too, but let's see if we have a question or two from Noah to give those who wrote in their question an equal chance to be heard. Noah, what do you got?
Thank you, Neil. Let me sift through. We have so many of these, Neil. Let's start. If I gotta see what came in most recently. So here we go. Mostly, Neil, just for FYI, a lot of this is just thank you from Jamaica and praise, and just this is beautiful. This is awesome. Love and peace from Arizona. That is awesome. So just to show you what I'm sifting through to find these questions. So appreciate it.
Oh, I should have given you a little bit of warning. I'm sorry.
No, don't worry. Connie says, mistakes don't exist. What about problems?
Oh, sure. What we call problematical exists, but that's a very insightful question, sweetheart. What's your name again?
That was Connie that says this.
Oh, Connie, that's profoundly asked. A wonderful ask, a wonderful question. It's a great question. But problems exist if we call them problems. Okay, problems do exist. It would be silly of me to say problems don't exist. But let's define what a problem is. A problem is a circumstance or a condition that we decide is problematical for a lot of reasons that might be very good reasons. But it's also equally true that what one person could call a problem, another person would not. Let me give you an example from my life real fast. About 30 or 40 years ago, 45 years ago, when I was a young man, I was married to a different lady. And one day I came home and she was gone. I mean, the house was empty. And I noticed that not only was she not there, because she could have been shopping or whatever, but I noticed that all of her things were gone. It took me a minute to get it, but I noticed, wait a minute, her stereo, her hi-fi set is gone. Oh, wait a minute, that lamp that she brought into the marriage is gone. Well, I wonder what happened. And so I ran up to the master bedroom and I threw open her side of the closet and all of her clothes were gone. I noticed that all of her things were gone. And I opened my side of the closet. I noticed, of course, all of my things were there. That's when I realized we had been robbed and the robber must have been a woman. Ha, ha, ha. I tried to make a joke of it in my head, but I realized what happened was she simply left. I was, deserted, if you please. And I thought, no, and I was never, I got to trust me on this. I was never physically abusive in any way. But was I a difficult, challenging person to get along with on a day-to-day basis? Yes. In my early 30s and my late 20s, I certainly was a challenge to get along with. And I think that she just decided she had enough. Now, I considered that a big problem. That's a problem, right? Your wife left you without even leaving a note, just disappeared because she didn't want to have an argument about it. She just disappeared from my life. The guy down the street had the same situation. His wife left him in the middle of the day without leaving him a note. It was a problem for me, and he was going, yes, yes, yay. I use an example to illustrate that what's a problem for one person or one civilization or one group of people may not be problematical for another. In fact, the other group may celebrate it. But when we decide that we are all one, when we join together in experiencing life and in creating life, co-creating together, which is what Humanities Team gives us an opportunity to do, then we confront circumstances and situations which we may choose to change. Because all of us may consider it problematical. Wouldn't it be great if all of us considered the climate crisis a problem? Wouldn't it be great if all of us considered that a problem and not only some of us? Because I'm here to tell you that if all of us care about the future for our children and our children's children, and even for ourselves, if we're not old geezers like me, it's problematical. But problems exist because we say that they are producing or generating circumstances with which we do not agree. So, but they're not problematical, of their very nature, but simply because we have chosen to define them as problems. And that's my answer to the question, Noah. Great question, Connie. Nice question. You got one more to give us?
I do, Neil. So let's see. This is from social media. Esteban says, how can I know if God is communicating with me or it's my ego?
Another great question. And of course, I ask the exact same question in my conversations with God dialogue. I ask the exact same question. How do I know this is you? How do I know it's not, my imagination? Or, what you use your word, Esteban, my ego. The answer I got from God was, what would be the difference between your imagination and a message from me? And so, but many people, God said to me, will deny what they are hearing from me because they think it's what they want to hear. And they think it's their ego talking. My ego would say, Neil is a nice person. Maybe my ego would say, Neil's a brilliant person. Neil's really insightful. Neil's really helpful. And Neil has all the qualities to make a success of his life. And Neil's life will be successful. Those are things that, of course, would be lovely for me to hear. But does that mean they're not true? So, and I have to tell you something, Esteban. I once said to God in my conversation, you know what? It's hard for me to believe that these messages are coming from God. They're almost too good to be true. You know what God answered? She said, Neil, if I can't be too good to be true, who can? So God's answers are probably going to sound too good to be true. But if we believe in the most positive, powerful, and loving responses that we are receiving, I'm going to suggest they're coming from the place within you where God resides. And again, let's be real clear. We're not talking about a God who lives up here someplace, a God who's way up there and we're way down here. No, we're talking about God in us, that God and we are one. And the wisdom of God, the love of God, the clarity of God exists within all of us. God has seeded those qualities within each of us at the moment of our birth, just as God has put all the information that the tree outside needed in the seed, no bigger than my fingernail. But the tree has not learned a thing since it became a tree. It simply grew into its full self. So those are my answers to you, Esteban. That's how I know that it's not my ego, because my ego and my highest self are really the same thing. And if my ego is saying wonderful things about me, it's because they're true. Now, if an ego run amok is something else. You can tell when your ego has run away with itself, when you think you're somehow better than everyone else. That's not the same thing. That's not ego. That's something I don't even know if there's a word for it. Or if you want to use the word ego, it's an ego that's run away with itself. If you're hearing messages from God that says you're better, Esteban, than anybody else. You're smarter than everybody else. You're nicer than everybody else. You're more superior to everyone else. If that's what you're hearing, that's probably not God. Not probably not God. It is not the highest source of wisdom within you that some of us call God. But if your voice within you is telling you good things about yourself and good things about your life and great things about your possibility, those messages are coming from the place of deep wisdom and clarity within you that I call God. Okay, Garth, do we have anybody who wants to be on camera with us? I see
Yes,
that.
I'd like to bring in Patricia.
Okay, Patricia, tell me everything.
Give her a second here. Make sure she's awake. There she is. And well, I saw her disappear from the other list. So that means she's en route. There she goes. I see you have your mute and camera still off. So there's half of it. There's the other half. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I've been looking forward all week to hearing what you have to say, Neil. So thank you so much for this, and thank you to Humanities team.
What a nice thing to say. Patricia, where do you live?
I live in Ocala, Florida.
Okay, wonderful. Ocala, Florida. Okay. So people from all over the world, even from Florida.
Even from Florida, yes.
How can I serve you today?
Well, I too have received messages, not like you, not conversations, but at times messages. And 3 of those messages I feel are meant to assist humanity in awakening. There was one I wanted to mention to you today, and it came in the form of a vision back in 1999. I called it the 2 Doors Vision. It revealed that our purpose in life is a realization of our oneness with God, that we have choices in how we can awaken consciously through gratitude or unconsciously through the challenges of life, learning our lessons.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Is there a question that I could help you with?
Yes, I was wondering if, according to your point process, number 4 is about emotions, embracing emotions. So I was wondering if Humanities team could embrace, endorse, adopt the practice of living in heart-centered gratitude as one of the ways to awaken our hearts into love, into being, into giving, into oneness.
Well, I can't imagine that members of Humanities team would not be willing to embrace such a notion and such an idea.
But,
thank you.
Well, I'd be happy to work with whatever needs to be done.
Well, I'm sure just make a connection with the people at Humanities team. They'll be careful because they'll put you to work.
That's okay.
Great.
Thank you so much, Neil.
You're welcome. You're welcome, my friend. Is there anybody else who has and you know what I'd love to offer us an opportunity to do now at this point? Thank all of you. If there's a particular question that you'd like to ask, because we're coming down to the last half hour that we'll be together. So it would serve us, not that I want to limit you in any way, but it would serve us mightily if you'd go right to the question, get right to that question. I'll give you my answer as rapidly as I can. That way we can get as many questions in as the time will allow. Fair enough? Okay, who's next?
Well, let's try Sally. I have not been in recent communication with Sally, so I don't know what her question is, but let's give it a shot here.
Yeah, Sally, tell me everything. Tell me what your question is, and I will give you and when you come on, be sure to turn on your microphone and be sure to turn on your camera, your little video camera.
Hello.
Hi, Sally. Tell me everything.
Well, this is unexpected. Thank you, Neil. You know, I tuned in today in a state of really feeling lost and confused, even though I have known and embraced the messages that you give for many, many years. And I'm inspired by you to believe that everything is happening for a reason. And my question was simply, when you're I already know the answer because of listening today, but when you're in these feelings that are so strong of negative thoughts and feelings, and you want to get to the other side so you can be more useful again. And so I already feel the answer is just the next right thing, because you were the next right thing today when I woke up feeling that way. So, but I'd like to hear more from you about that.
Let me give you a tool, if it might be helpful, Sally, that I have used. It's been very powerful, that I was given in my conversations with God. The tool is, and you're going to laugh when I tell, because it's, you're going to already know that you probably could have guessed it. But here's the tool: gratitude.
I know.
And when I have used that tool, not just as a concept, not just as kind of a theory or a nifty idea, but an actual functional practice, when I've actually sat down with myself, when I've gotten into those places, and I get into those places too. I look at the world, I see what's going on, on the planet. I look at my own life, I see some of the things that are going on in my own life, and I might find myself feeling a little bit anxious or depressed or have some negative response. And then I use the tool of, what if I could move to gratitude? What if I said, wow, thank you, God, for this opportunity to announce and declare, express and fulfill, become and experience who I really am. Because that's what I came here for. I didn't come here to, get the guy, get the girl, get the car, get the job, get the better thing, get the better thing. My physical life has very little to do with why I'm really here. That doesn't mean I can't enjoy my physical life and can't do what it takes to make it comfortable, but that's not the reason I came here. I'm a spiritual entity, and I came here to demonstrate, experience, and express my true identity as an aspect of divinity. And this current experience that I'm having, what I'm seeing out there in the world and what I'm experiencing in my life right now, is giving me a perfect opportunity to demonstrate, to announce and declare who I really am. So I say, thank you, God. I say, thank you, God, for even what some would call the worst of it, so that I can step into expressing the best of it. And here's the tool that I just gave the whole audience a moment ago. Tool number 4 in our list of tools: to not move to even positive thinking, but to our emotion. And to in fact trade our emotion for God's feeling. How would God feel about what's going on right now if God had no judgment, nothing that she needed, nothing that he demands, nothing that he requires, nothing that she even hopes for? But what if God had everything that God needs to be perfectly joyfully happy now, and was simply allowing us the opportunity to create what we chose to create? How would God feel about the circumstance? Would he feel like, wow, this is horrible? Or what would God be feeling looking at everything that's going on the planet right now? And that's another tool that I have used to see how I would feel if I felt the way I thought God would feel. Those are the 2 tools that I've used: gratitude and shifting the access of my experience to God's feeling about it. And I think how God would feel is that those entities down there are intelligent enough and brilliant enough and resourceful enough to use the tools that I have given them. And I have every confidence in their ability to do so. And now it's all about willingness. And if I felt that that's how God feels, then I would then step into, what can I do to engage a process that would encourage willingness on the part of all the other people I'm sharing my life with, to seek and to create solutions to our individual and our collective challenges and problems. And I would step into that. I would step into the moving of energy around in that way. I would become an idea hero, and I'd start to talk about ways that I could create that willingness among everybody else. I might even start a spiritual support group every Tuesday night from 7:30 to 9. I did that once years ago. I saw, you know what, I want to, and I put a little notice up at the local bookstore and a little notice up at the local natural food store on the bulletin board, and it said spiritual support group. Feeling discouraged? Let's find our willingness to change our experience together. 7:30 Tuesday night. I gave an address. It got to be a point where I couldn't put it in my house anymore. I had to actually rent a little room for $7.50 a night from the local Unity Church, but I did. They were happy to rent the room out to me. I think it was like $15 a night, and I had the class. It wasn't a class. It was a spiritual support group, but I brought to them a sense of, one, not being alone, a sense of spiritual companionship, and an awareness of some of the tools that they could use from what I learned because of my involvement with groups like Humanities Team, and because of my reading of all kinds of materials, including books like Conversations with God. And it got to the point where I couldn't wait until Tuesday night to step into that place where I could be a source of opportunities to engage the God solution. And you'll be amazed at how grateful people, some nights I only had 2 or 3 people there, but they would all say the same thing to me. Thank you for being here. Well, someone that I can just talk to about how sad and depressed I've been and how I've been searching for some spiritual tools. And here you are. You just showed up. So there are many, many ways to move forward from the place that you described yourself as being in. And those are some of the ways that I would offer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm excited to have you part of the team.
I'm on the team.
I get it. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. We have about 15 minutes left. Who's left? Who would like to chat with us? And if there's nobody in the queue, we can see if Noah has a final question. Garth? By the way,
Let's
Garth.
call on Guy.
Okay, any guy will do, but this
Any guy will do. I don't know how to say this name. Sveslaza, something like that.
Okay, Guy. Stress.
F-E-R-L-A-Z-Z-A.
Yeah. Hi, Star. Hi, Guy. Turn on your microphone, turn on your camera, and let's have a conversation. We've got about 15 minutes before I have to say goodbye.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you, Garth. And you say my last name, Svetalatsa.
Svetalatsa.
Yeah, and the hand motion is important.
I know.
It sounds great when you say it.
Thank you. And Neil, thank you for all that you've done all these years. It's an honor to speak with you. Here's my question. I have been serving my sense of the way I serve the Lord with my music for many years. COVID has completely shifted the way I used to do it, of course, with live shows. Right now, I'm in limbo. I've been trying my best to get the digital thing going, and I'm just in a little bit of stress over it, but I'm also very prayerful with knowing God is unfolding it for me. And I just wanted to present this question to you in the best way to just be peaceful with being in uncertainty.
Have any outcome be okay. Let whatever outcome occurs and arises be okay. Even if this affects your income, know that as you know, you'll be fine. It could be tough going for a while, but everything is, and just to be grateful and to know that everything is really going to be okay. What freed me from stress and strain in my life, any level of anxiety or worry. By the way, somebody once said, worry is prayer misdirected.
Right.
I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah.
So what served me was to release. I'm going to use the word release and let go of any need for any particular outcome.
Yes.
My prayer is this God or something better.
Yes. Knowing that the Lord is unfolding it and I should just ride with exactly what's unfolding.
This God or something better.
Very good.
And that's what has been a prayer that I've used for a long time. And here's my favorite prayer, by the way. Thank you, God, for helping me to know that this problem has already been solved for me. I say that prayer many mornings. Thank you, God, for helping me to know that this problem has already been solved for me.
Thank you.
Was there something more you wanted to say?
Well, when you said this God or something better, it sounds like you did put an intention or a preference on the way you'd like to see it work out.
Sure. I'd like, I'm not particularly happy with what's currently presenting itself, and I'm happy to have something better, and I'm okay if this is what it is. It's not a requirement, it's a desire.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, nice. So I'm going to ask Noah, is there a final question in your queue of written comments that we can close our program out with today?
Yes, there is. Boy, I had it open and now it's
Of course, because you didn't think I was going to call on you again. But Garth told me.
I do have it. Sorry, I was in a different place.
Garth told me, call on Noah, because he's not ready. Let's trick him.
As long as you're not asking me to do a soft shoe or a loose shoe, Neil. And this is from Sandra, and she says, my question is, in this moment, of all the different situations in the world, how do I contribute to make a real difference?
The answer is different for everyone. So there's no one size fits all answer that I can give you, except the global answer, which I'm sure you can expect. It's an answer that I actually started off with about 4 hours ago. What if you decided to express pure love? A love that requires, demands, expects, asks nothing in return from everyone and everything. Now you might say, oh, Neil, I've heard all about be love, give love, demonstrate love. I thought I would get a little different answer from you. I thought you were more original than that. I wouldn't blame you if you said that, but here's what I want you to know. So because some people think, well, that wouldn't change. What's the best thing I could do to change the world or to be any kind of impact on the world? My dear, I promise you that what I'm going to say to you now is powerful and true. If you did nothing but that, you would impact the lives of more people than you could ever imagine. Not just a dozen, not just a couple hundred, maybe even more than thousands. Because the ripple in the water effect, that is what occurs in other people's lives, and then they pass it on, they pass it on, they pass it on. By your simple decision to be the source. Conversations with God gave me 3 words, my friend, that I have used as my guiding motto. Looking for the right words there. My guiding motto, the motto that's guided my life. 3 words that I got in book 1 of Conversations with God. Whatever you want to experience yourself, be the source. Be the source of it in the life of another. In the end, that is the God solution. Be the source. So go deep inside. What do I want to experience? And if whatever it is, cause another person to have the same experience that you would like to have in your own life. And you will discover that what flows through you sticks to you, and that you've become the source. And it's like magic. You become a sorcerer. It's magic. And you become life's greatest magician. So, my dear, simply be the source of pure love for everyone and everything, every situation, every circumstance, as I mentioned at the beginning of this program, and every physical item as well. I love my house. I love my car. I love the tree outside the window. I just pour pure love to the degree that I am able to do into everything that I encounter in life. every person, place, or thing. Honestly, you're going to laugh at this, but there's a big, big, big plant in my house. I mean, it's a big tree almost. And I sometimes, like once a week, I'll go over and I'll give it a little kiss because the leaves are very large. I'll take a little leaf and I'll just give it a little smooch. I actually do that. I kiss the plant because I want the plant. And I say to the plant, I love you, baby. You're bringing such wonderful life and beauty into this house. And I send that love to everyone and everything in my life to the degree that, that my humanity allows me to do so. And does that touch people in profound ways? I promise you, that is my answer to your question. And then how it plays itself out, how you demonstrate your love is individual to every person. You know, we're all playing the same piece of music, but we all have a different instrument. One person's playing Mozart on a clarinet, one person's playing Mozart on a violin, one person's playing Mozart on a piano keyboard, but we're all playing Mozart and we're all playing from the same score. And once you do that, you know what the score is, to use another final metaphor. Yeah, I've enjoyed being here with you today immensely. It's been a glorious opportunity for me to share some of my foundational thoughts about the God solution. I know that Steve may have a word or two that he'd like to share at the end of our time together, and then this program would be officially concluded at what is on the Pacific coast of America, 12 noon, or wherever you are in the world, our 4-hour program, which we promised we would conclude at the end of 4 hours, so you'd have to miss nothing. But thank you to Garth Catterall, our wonderful producer. Wow, wow, wow. What a nifty guy and what a great talent he has for pulling everything together, holding everything together, and causing everything to come together. Thank you to Noah for the work that you've done, helping me get through this program and making sure that some of the key questions were answered. And thank you to Steve Farrell, the co-founder, co-creator of Humanity's Team. Noah, who lives in the same state that I live in. Of course, we both live in Oregon. And maybe one day he'll come down and visit me because he only lives a few hours away. And then thank you to Steve Farrell for being who you are, being the inspiration for people all over the world to become part of the movement that we have called Humanity's Team. And I'll see you next time we get together. Bye for now.
All right, huge thank you to Neil. Let's all give him a big, huge round of applause. Thank you, Neil. Fantastic. Wow, what a 4-hour workshop it's been. And so Noah and Garth Catterall, Karen Gordon, Jim Gray, Nanette Kennedy, Dee Meyer, thank you to all of the people that helped make this program possible too. So let me just end with by coming back to a question that was asked a few times here during the program, which is what can I do? What can one person do? And as Neil mentioned, there are many things actually that we can do, but let me invite you to one thing, which is the Global Oneness Summit that Neil is a part of. This workshop is part of the lead up to this year's 12th Global Oneness Summit. It's called Opening to Your Universal Self, and it starts on Saturday, October 16th. It starts with something called Shout Out Love, where a bunch of us are on screen and on Facebook, and we're shouting out love to the whole world in this Zoom. A bunch of people will be live on camera. And then we go into a program with scientists that talk about how there's no such thing as disunity. So, which is what Neil has been sharing here during the 4-hour workshop, except that this is scientists. These are scientists that are bringing forward their research and saying there's no such thing as disunity, that everything actually is a part of one thing. We're all emanations of that one thing. It starts, the Global Oneness Summit starts that way. And we're going to put a link in the window so that you can join. It's a 9-day free summit. It goes about a half a day for 9 days, and it ends on Sunday, October 24th. And if you miss any of the summit, when you register by leaving your name and email address, we send you a link at the end of each day to the summit so you can watch the program in the evening for free also. So it's called Opening to Your Universal Self. It's the Global Oneness Summit, and it's going to be a huge gift to yourself. There are over 100 panelists. It's astounding the wisdom that's shared during the summit, including during Neil's program that's called The Voice of Universal Self with Lisa Nichols, which is incredible. That panel's on the first day of the summit on Saturday, October 16th, so you don't want to miss it. Now, also, coming back to what can one person do? So the Global Oneness Summit is part of something larger, which is the whole humanities team mission that Neil was talking about here, which is to make conscious living pervasive, which means standard, which means growing, which means moving to ubiquitous in the worldwide in the next 20 years. So where we all understand all over the world, there's no such thing as disunity, and we're living our own lives and in our homes and in workplaces and all over the world in this place of connection and this place of oneness, and which of course then creates a sustainable planet and a flourishing planet. Now, as we've been sharing here during the program, we're not on a pace today to do that. So which is why we created this initiative called PACE, Planetary Awakening and Conscious Evolution. I want to invite you to come in and just be a part of our humanities team programs to help us pick up the pace, to even to be a pace setter yourself, where in your community, in your country, you talk about, that's my dog here, Sadie, who says she's ready for a pet, where we talk about our oneness, where we talk about unity. And even more than important than talking about it, we're an expression of it. We're an expression of unity, of oneness, of conscious living in our home, in our workplace, all over the world. So I want to invite you to that, feel into that, and see if that resonates for you to be a part of something like this initiative to make conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040. And if it resonates, be sure to join us for the Global Oneness Summit starting Saturday, October 16, and then come to the humanitiesteam.org website and look at all of the programs that we've got. We've got many free programs. Every Friday, we have a free program called Accelebration. Lots of stuff we're doing that you can participate in. Okay, and with that, I think we're coming up on the top of the hour. Thank you for being here with us. Again, thank you to Neil Donald Walsh and to all of our team that's here been producing this program. And we're back next week. So Friday next week at 9 a.m. Pacific to give Greg Braden our Spiritual Leadership Award for 2021. That's a live program too. Be sure to join us. If you register for the 2021 Global Oneness Summit, you'll get an invitation to come join us for that program. But that's also a free program and it's live. Okay. Thanks everybody, and namaste. Have a fabulous rest of day. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday. Take care, everybody. Love and peace.